A single father and his daughter saved a dying stranger on a mountain trail. But what happened next changed all three lives forever. When Elias Turner heard his daughter's terrified whisper that morning, he had no idea the bleeding woman they'd find would become the answer to a prayer he was too broken to ask. This is their story, a journey from rescue to redemption, from grief to unexpected grace. Stay until the end, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story travels. The morning air bit cold against Elias Turner's face as he adjusted the straps of his hiking pack, the familiar weight of grief settling heavier than any gear he carried. 6-year-old Mila stood beside him in the parking lot of Cascade Meadows Trail, her purple jacket zipped to her chin, clutching the small bouquet of wildflowers they'd picked from their garden before dawn. "Ready, Butterfly?" Elias asked, using the nickname that always made her smile, the one his late wife Celeste had given their daughter years ago. Mila nodded, her dark curls bouncing beneath her knit cap. "Mommy's waiting for us up there." The words pierced him the way they always did, that innocent certainty in her voice, the way she still spoke of Celeste in the present tense 2 years after the car accident that shattered their world. Elias had stopped correcting her months ago. Let her have whatever comfort she could find. God knew he had little enough to offer. They started up the trail as the October sun began its slow climb over the Oregon foothills, painting the Douglas firs in shades of amber and gold. This path had become their ritual. The third Saturday of every month, they hiked 3 miles into the wilderness to the lightning-struck cedar where Elias had scattered Celeste's ashes, where he'd mounted a small bronze plaque that read, "Celeste Turner, artist, dreamer, forever loved." Mila chattered as they walked, her small hand warm in his, narrating an elaborate story about a family of rabbits she'd decided lived in the hollow log they always passed at the half-mile marker. Elias made the appropriate sounds of interest, but his mind wandered to the stack of unpaid bills on his kitchen counter, the parent-teacher conference he'd missed last week because of an emergency electrical job, the way Mila had crawled into his bed again last night crying for her mother. Single fatherhood was a weight he carried with the exhaustion of a man who never quite slept deeply anymore. Always listening for the sound of his daughter's nightmares, always wondering if he was doing enough, being enough, filling even a fraction of the space Celeste had left behind. "Daddy, look!" Mila pointed to a hawk circling overhead. "Mommy sent it to watch over us." "Maybe she did, Butterfly." They climbed higher, the trail narrowing as it wound through stands of old-growth timber. Elias's thighs burned with the familiar ache of the ascent, but he welcomed the physical discomfort. It was cleaner somehow than the emotional kind, more straightforward in its demand for endurance. At the 2-mile marker, they stopped for water. Mila produced a carefully wrapped granola bar from her pocket. She'd been packing her own snacks for these trips lately, trying so hard to be helpful, to be grown up in ways that broke his heart. "You're a good hiker," Elias said, brushing crumbs from her chin. "Getting stronger every month. Mommy would be proud?" "Mommy would be so proud." They continued on, and Elias felt the familiar tightening in his chest as they approached the memorial spot. No matter how many times he made this journey, the grief always hit fresh at the end. Seeing that plaque, remembering the way Celeste had loved this view, had painted it 6 times in the studio she'd set up in their garage. But they were still 50 yards from the cedar when Mila suddenly stopped walking. "Daddy." Her voice had gone small, uncertain in a way that made Elias instantly alert. "What's wrong?" "Do you hear that?" Elias strained to listen past the whisper of wind through the pines, the distant call of a jay. And then he heard it, faint, almost lost beneath the forest sounds. A human voice, crying out, weak. "Someone's crying," Mila whispered, her eyes wide. "They sound hurt." Every instinct in Elias's body went on high alert. They were deep into the wilderness now, at least a mile from the nearest branching trail. This section of the foothills saw moderate traffic during summer, but in late October, midweek, they rarely encountered other hikers. "Stay close to me," he said, pulling Mila behind him as he moved toward the sound. The voice came again, definitely female, definitely in distress. Elias left the main trail, pushing through low-hanging branches, his electrician's hands automatically noting the broken vegetation. The disturbed earth that suggested someone, had crashed through here recently. "Hello?" he called out. "Can you hear me? Where are you?" "Here. Oh God, please, I'm here." The voice was closer now, raw with pain, and what sounded like hours of crying for help. Elias moved faster, pulling Mila carefully behind him through the undergrowth. And then they found her. A young woman, maybe late 20s, early 30s, lay crumpled against a moss-covered log about 30 feet off the trail. Her black jacket was soaked dark with blood down the right side. Her face was ashen, lips nearly blue, dark hair matted with dirt and pine needles. One leg was bent at an unnatural angle, her hiking boot wedged between two rocks. But it was her shoulder that drew Elias's immediate attention, the way she pressed both hands against it, blood seeping steadily between her fingers despite her best efforts to staunch the flow. "Oh, Jesus," Elias breathed. The woman's eyes opened, gray-blue and clouded with pain, and locked onto his face with an expression of such desperate relief that it physically struck him. "Please," she gasped. "Please help me. I've been calling over an hour, maybe more. I can't. My phone fell. Can't reach it." Elias was already moving, years of responding to electrical emergencies clicking him into a state of focused calm. He shrugged off his pack, mentally inventorying what he had. First aid kit, emergency blanket, water, rope. "Mila, stay right there," he commanded, pointing to a spot 10 feet away. "Don't move, baby. I need you to be very brave and very still." His daughter nodded, her face pale but composed in that way that made her seem older than 6, that way that reminded him achingly of Celeste. Elias dropped to his knees beside the injured woman, his hands already assessing, his electrician's mind shifting seamlessly into triage mode. He'd taken wilderness first aid courses years ago, back when he and Celeste used to backcountry camp. The training came flooding back now. "I'm Elias," he said, keeping his voice steady, authoritative. "I'm going to help you. What's your name?" Harper Lane." Her teeth were chattering despite the relatively mild morning temperature. Shock. Definitely in shock. "Okay, Harper, I need you to tell me what happened. Can you do that?" "2 men, early this morning, tried to rob me. I'm a photographer. They wanted my equipment. I ran, fell." She gestured weakly at her ankle. "Something happened to my shoulder. I don't know if one of them had a knife or if I caught it on a branch." Elias carefully peeled back her jacket, his jaw tightening at what he saw. A deep laceration ran from the top of her shoulder down toward her collarbone, at least 4 inches long, deep enough that he could see layers of tissue. Not spurting, which meant no major artery, but bleeding steadily enough to be dangerous. She'd already lost a significant amount of blood. "Harper, listen to me. You have a bad cut on your shoulder. Your ankle is injured, but I can get you out of here. Do you understand?" "I tried. Couldn't walk, so cold. I know, but we're going to fix this." Elias pulled out his first aid kit, his hands moving with practiced efficiency. He ripped open packages of gauze, packed them against the wound, wrapped pressure bandages around her shoulder to hold them in place. It wasn't enough. She needed actual medical care. Stitches, probably antibiotics, but it would have to do. The ankle was swollen to twice its normal size, already darkening with bruises. Definitely broken or severely sprained. No way she could walk. "Daddy?" Mila's voice was small behind him. "It's okay, Butterfly. I've got this." He looked back at his daughter, saw her holding the bouquet of flowers they'd brought for Celeste, her eyes fixed on the injured woman with an expression of solemn concern. Elias turned back to Harper. "I'm going to carry you. But first, do you have your phone? Can you tell me where it is?" "Fell. That way." She gestured vaguely downslope. 10 feet, maybe. "I tried to reach it, but—" "Mila, stay exactly where you are. Do not move." Elias scrambled down the slope, scanning the forest floor. There, a glint of metal between fallen leaves. He grabbed the phone, scrambled back up. No signal. Of course not. They were in a dead zone. He wouldn't get service until they were at least a quarter-mile back down the trail, closer to the ridge. "Okay." Elias forced himself to think clearly. Harper was in shock, had lost blood, probably had been lying here for hours. Moving her was a risk, but leaving her was worse. And the temperature was dropping. They'd wake to frost tomorrow morning. If she spent another night out here, she wouldn't survive. He looked at his daughter. Mila, come here. She approached carefully, still clutching the flowers. Up close, he could see the fear in her eyes, the trembling in her small hands. But she didn't cry, didn't run. Celeste's daughter through and through, steady in a crisis. We're going to help Miss Harper get down the mountain, Elias said quietly. I need you to be the bravest girl in the world right now. Can you do that? Like when Mommy was in the hospital? The word stabbed him, the memory of Mila holding his hand in those awful final hours, her small presence, the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. Just like that, Butterfly. He turned back to Harper. I'm going to lift you onto my back. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry, but there's no other way. Just please, get me out. Elias positioned himself, wrapped her arms around his neck, and stood in one smooth motion born of years of hauling heavy electrical equipment up ladders. Harper screamed, a sound that would haunt his dreams, but held on. He adjusted her weight, feeling the dampness of blood soaking through his shirt. Mila, you're going to lead us. Stay on the trail. If you see anything dangerous, you tell me immediately. Understand? Yes, Daddy. And take this. He handed her Harper's phone. The second you see even one bar of service, you tell me. They started moving. It was the longest quarter mile of Elias's life. Every step jarred Harper, who bit back cries of pain with a stoicism he had to admire. Mila walked ahead, glancing back every few seconds, her small body tense with responsibility. And Elias focused on breathing, on placing one foot in front of the other, on not thinking about how Harper's weight seemed to be getting heavier, how her breathing against his neck was getting more shallow. Stay with me, Harper, he said. Talk to me. Tell me about your photography. Landscapes, she mumbled. Nature. Beauty in wild places. Like this place? Was going to shoot. Sunrise from the ridge. Been planning it for months. You'll get another chance, I promise. How do you know? Because I'm not letting you die on this mountain. My daughter and I have already lost enough. We're not losing you too. Harper's laugh was weak but genuine. Don't even know me. Doesn't matter. Mila's voice cut through. Daddy, one bar. Stop. Right there. Elias carefully lowered himself to one knee, keeping Harper balanced on his back. Mila, dial 911. Can you do that? His daughter's small fingers worked the phone with the familiarity of a generation born into technology. She held it to her ear. Hello? My daddy and I found a lady who's hurt very bad. We're on Cascade Meadows Trail. She's bleeding a lot, and her foot is broken, and she's very cold. Mila's voice was surprisingly steady. Yes, we're about 2.5 miles up, near where the big rock looks like a turtle. My daddy carried her. She listened, nodded. Okay, I'll tell him. Mila lowered the phone. They're sending a helicopter. They said to stay where we are and keep her warm and make sure she doesn't fall asleep. Good job, Butterfly. Elias felt a surge of pride so intense it almost brought tears. You did perfect. He carefully shifted Harper off his back, laying her as gently as possible on the ground. She was shaking violently now, her lips turning blue. He pulled out the emergency blanket, wrapped it around her, then stripped off his own jacket and added it to the pile. No, you'll get cold, Harper protested weakly. I'll be fine. I'm not the one in shock. Elias sat beside her, pulling Mila onto his lap. The three of them huddled there on the trail. An electrician, his 6-year-old daughter, and a dying stranger, waiting for rescue under the October sun. Tell me about your daughter, Harper whispered. Her eyes were unfocused, starting to drift. Hey, Elias gently tapped her cheek. Stay awake. You heard Mila. You can't fall asleep. Sorry, just so tired. I know, but you have to fight it. So yes, I'll tell you about Mila. She's the best thing in my world. She loves purple, butterflies, and drawing pictures. She wants to be either an artist or a veterinarian when she grows up. She changes her mind weekly. She's the bravest person I know. Like her dad, Harper murmured. No, like her mom. Something in his tone made Harper's eyes open a fraction wider. Her mom? She died 2 years ago. Car accident. We were actually coming up here today to visit her memorial. There's a cedar tree about half a mile up where I scattered her ashes. I'm sorry. Me too. Mila stirred on his lap, looked up at Harper with solemn eyes. Mommy's in heaven. She sends us butterflies to let us know she's watching, and hawks sometimes. And once a hummingbird came right up to our window, and Daddy said that was definitely Mommy saying hello. Harper's cracked lips curved into the ghost of a smile. Your mommy sounds wonderful. She was the best mommy in the whole world. But now she's with the angels and Daddy takes care of me. He makes really good pancakes, but sometimes he forgets to pack my lunch and I have to remind him. Mila said this matter-of-factly, without judgment. Despite everything, Elias felt his chest tighten with emotion. His daughter's casual acknowledgement of his failures, her gentle acceptance of his human limitations, it gutted him. I'm working on the lunch thing, he said quietly. I know, Daddy. Harper's breathing had gotten more labored. Elias checked his watch. It had been 12 minutes since Mila called 911. Where the hell was the helicopter? Harper, look at me. He leaned closer. You said you're a photographer. Where do you live? Portland, southeast. Little studio apartment near Hawthorne. Family? Brother in Seattle, mom in California. Dad passed when I was young. Boyfriend? Husband? Neither. It's just me. She paused. God, that sounds pathetic. It sounds like someone who's independent, someone who gets up before dawn to hike alone into the mountains for the perfect shot. That's not pathetic. That's badass. Another weak smile. Thanks. Daddy? Mila was pointing. What's that sound? The helicopter. The next 15 minutes passed in a blur of controlled chaos. The med-flight crew descended with efficiency that impressed even Elias's practical mind, assessing Harper, starting an IV line, stabilizing her ankle, loading her onto a stretcher. A young paramedic who looked barely old enough to shave examined her shoulder wound and whistled low. You did good work, he told Elias. Probably saved her life. Another couple hours and she'd have been in serious trouble. They lifted Harper toward the helicopter. Her eyes found Elias one more time. Thank you, she mouthed. He nodded. Mila waved. And then the helicopter was rising, banking west toward Portland, carrying Harper Lane out of their lives as abruptly as she'd entered. Elias and Mila stood on the trail, watching until the aircraft became a speck, then nothing. The forest settled back into silence around them, just bird song and wind, as if the last hour had been a dream. Daddy? Mila's voice was small. We didn't get to visit Mommy. Elias looked down at his daughter, at the wilted flowers still clutched in her hand, and felt something shift in his chest. For 2 years he'd been making this pilgrimage with the grim dedication of duty, of keeping faith with the dead. But today, something had broken through the ritual of grief. Today, they'd saved a life. I think Mommy understands, he said softly. I think maybe she sent us here today for a different reason. Mila considered this with the seriousness she brought to all matters of her mother. To help Miss Harper? Yeah, Butterfly, to help Miss Harper. Will she be okay? I think so. Good. Mila tucked her hand into his. Can we go home now? I'm hungry. Elias had to laugh, the sudden return to 6-year-old practicality after such intensity. Yeah, we can go home. They started back down the trail, and Elias tried to shake the strange feeling that had settled over him. It was just adrenaline, he told himself. The aftermath of emergency response, the shock of finding someone dying in the woods. But it felt like more than that. It felt like something beginning. That night, after he'd fed Mila mac and cheese and helped her through her bath and read 3 chapters of Charlotte's Web and finally gotten her settled in bed, Elias sat at his kitchen table staring at his phone. He'd Googled Harper Lane Photographer Portland and found her website easily. It was beautifully designed, full of stunning landscape photography. Mountains at sunrise, coastal storm systems, the high desert painted in impossible colors. She had real talent, had published in National Geographic Outdoor Magazine, several conservation journals. Her bio was brief. Harper Lane specializes in wilderness photography with a focus on endangered ecosystems, based in Portland, Oregon, available for commissions and prints. There was a contact form. Elias's finger hovered over it, then pulled back. What would he even say? Hi, I'm the guy who carried you off a mountain. Hope you're recovering well. Seemed weird not to check in. He closed the browser, plugged his phone in to charge. Mila appeared in the doorway in her purple pajamas, her stuffed rabbit dangling from one hand. Can't sleep? Elias asked. She climbed into his lap without asking, something she'd been doing more lately, as if she could sense when he needed the comfort as much as she did. Daddy, do you think Miss Harper is scared right now? In the hospital all alone? Maybe a little, but the doctors are taking good care of her. We should send her something, like flowers. Mommy always said flowers make people feel better. Elias felt that familiar ache, Celeste's wisdom channeled through their daughter's innocent observations. That's a good idea, Butterfly. We can do that tomorrow. And I could draw her a picture of butterflies, because butterflies mean hope and new beginnings. Mommy told me that. When did she tell you that? Before she went to heaven, when she was very sick and couldn't get out of bed. She said that even when things seem really sad, butterflies come and remind us that beautiful things can happen. That's why she called me her butterfly. Elias had to close his eyes against the sudden burn of tears. 2 years, and his wife could still reach through the veil of death to teach their daughter lessons he was too broken to articulate. Then we'll definitely send Miss Harper butterflies, he managed. Mila nestled against his chest, yawning. Daddy, I'm glad we found her. Me too, baby. Do you think we'll see her again? I don't know, maybe. I hope so. I liked her. Even though she was hurt and scared, she was nice to me. She looked at me like I was a real person, not just a little kid. Elias kissed the top of his daughter's head, breathing in the strawberry scent of her shampoo. You are a real person, the realest person I know. He carried Mila back to bed, tucked her in, sat beside her until her breathing evened out into sleep. Then he stood in the doorway of her room for a long moment, watching her in the glow of her butterfly nightlight, thinking about the strange shape the day had taken. They'd gone up the mountain to honor the dead. Instead, they'd saved the living. And Elias couldn't shake the feeling that Celeste had somehow orchestrated the whole thing, that his wife had sent them onto that trail at exactly the right moment to find exactly the right person. It was the kind of cosmic intervention she'd always believed in, the kind of grace he'd stopped believing in the day she died. But standing here now, watching their daughter sleep, remembering the desperation in Harper Lane's eyes when she'd begged for help, remembering the weight of her life in his hands as he carried her down that mountain. Maybe Grace wasn't dead after all. Maybe it was just waiting for the moment he was ready to receive it. At the hospital, Harper Lane lay in her bed watching the sun set through her window, her shoulder throbbing despite the morphine, her ankle elevated and wrapped, and tried to process that she was alive. The doctors had told her how close it had been. Another hour, maybe less, and she would have bled out or slipped into irreversible shock. The men who'd attacked her had melted into the forest. The police were investigating but held little hope of finding them. Her expensive camera equipment was gone. She'd nearly died for art. But what occupied her mind wasn't the attack or the loss, or even the pain. It was the man and the little girl, Elias and Mila Turner. She'd caught enough of their conversation, overheard enough while drifting in and out of consciousness, to understand that they'd been heading to a memorial for the girl's dead mother when they'd found her instead, that they'd sacrificed their ritual of grief to save a stranger's life, that the man's voice had been steady and strong and certain when Harper had been sure she was dying, that the little girl had held her hand during the helicopter loading and whispered, "The butterflies will watch over you now." The nurse had helped her look them up. There wasn't much online, just an electrician's business listing for Elias Turner. No social media presence she could find. Private people, the kind who lived quietly, who showed up when needed and didn't make a spectacle of their kindness. Her brother had already called twice from Seattle, frantic with worry. Her mother was booking a flight from San Diego. But Harper found herself thinking instead about the small family who'd plucked her from death, whose day she'd interrupted, whose grieving pilgrimage she'd derailed. She needed to thank them properly. More than that, and she recognized this might be the morphine talking, or the shock, or the strange clarity that came from nearly dying. She needed to know them. Because in the worst moment of her life, When she'd been certain she would die alone on a mountain, they had appeared like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known how to form. A father teaching his daughter that strangers are worth saving. A daughter teaching her father that grace still exists. And Harper, who'd spent the last 3 years of her life behind a camera capturing the world's beauty while keeping herself carefully separate from it, felt something crack open in her chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. The sun finished setting. The hospital lights came on. And Harper Lane closed her eyes, seeing not darkness but the image of a small girl's solemn face, a bouquet of purple flowers, and a man's steady hands that had refused to let her die. "Thank you," she whispered to the empty room, to the absent rescuers, to whatever force had placed her on that trail at that exact moment. And somewhere in the universe, or maybe just in the quiet spaces between heartbeats, the answer came back. "You're welcome. Now pay attention. This is just the beginning." 7 weeks passed before Harper Lane felt strong enough to write the letter. Her shoulder had healed into a pink puckered scar that her physical therapist promised would fade with time. The ankle was another story. 3 fractures, 2 surgeries, and a recovery timeline that stretched into the new year. She'd traded her hiking boots for a walking boot, her wilderness adventures for endless sessions of painful rehabilitation exercises. But the physical healing was the easy part. The harder work happened in the spaces between, in the middle of the night when she woke gasping from dreams of bleeding out alone in the forest, in the quiet moments when she found herself staring at her camera equipment insurance claim form, unable to remember why any of it had seemed important enough to risk her life for. Her brother Marcus had stayed for a week after the attack, sleeping on her apartment couch, helping her navigate stairs, listening while she processed the trauma. Her mother had flown up from California, cooked enough meals to fill Harper's freezer for a month, and asked gentle questions Harper wasn't ready to answer. What had she been thinking, hiking alone at dawn? Why hadn't she told anyone where she was going? Didn't she understand how easily she could have died? The answer to all of it was the same. She'd gotten comfortable with solitude, had convinced herself that independence meant isolation, that art required distance from the messy complications of human connection, and she'd nearly died because of it. The therapist her insurance company required her to see, a kind woman named Dr. Chen, who specialized in trauma, had asked Harper what she'd been thinking about during those hours alone on the mountain, bleeding and certain she wouldn't be found. "Regret," Harper had answered honestly. "All the things I'd never done. All the connections I'd avoided. All the ways I'd confused being alone with being free. And what changed? A man named Elias and his daughter Mila found me. They carried me down a mountain. They saved my life." "Have you thanked them?" Harper had shaken her head. "I don't know how. How do you thank someone for giving you back your entire future?" Dr. Chen had smiled. "You could start with a letter." So Harper started writing. She went through 7 drafts, each one feeling simultaneously too formal and too intimate, unable to capture the enormity of what she needed to express. How did you tell strangers they'd rewired your entire understanding of human kindness? How did you explain that their faces had become the last thought before sleep and the first upon waking? Finally, she settled on honesty. Simple, direct, from the heart. The letter arrived on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-December. Elias found it in his mailbox between an electric bill and a grocery store flyer, a cream-colored envelope addressed in elegant handwriting to Elias and Mila Turner. No return address, but something about the careful penmanship made his chest tighten with recognition. He waited until Mila got home from school to open it. "It's from Miss Harper," she announced the moment she saw the envelope, with the uncanny certainty that 6-year-olds sometimes possessed. "Open it, Daddy." Elias slit the envelope carefully. Inside was a handwritten letter on thick paper, the words flowing in the same beautiful script. "Dear Elias and Mila, I've started this letter a dozen times, and I still don't have the right words. How do you thank someone for your life? For your future? For every sunrise you'll see, and every moment you'll experience because they refused to let you die? I'm told I would have had maybe another hour if you hadn't found me. The doctors say your first aid and quick thinking made the difference between survival and something I don't want to imagine. But what I keep thinking about isn't just that you saved me, it's how you saved me. With kindness and competence and without hesitation. You were on your way to honor someone you'd lost, and you stopped. You changed your plans. You carried a stranger down a mountain. Mila, your bravery and your steady presence helped me stay calm when I was terrified. You called for help with the courage of someone much older. You held my hand and told me about butterflies and new beginnings, and I believed you. Elias, your strength and certainty gave me hope when I had none left. You told me you wouldn't let me die on that mountain, and you didn't. You kept your promise. I'm still recovering, my shoulder is healing well, my ankle less so, but I'm alive. I'm here, and I owe that to both of you. I would very much like to thank you in person, if you'd allow it. I know I'm a stranger who interrupted your life once already, but I'd love to buy you both lunch, to see your faces when I'm not bleeding and terrified, to properly express what you gave me that day. There's a cafe near Cascade Meadows called River's Edge. Would you meet me there on Saturday, December 21st at noon? I promise I'll be the one walking with a boot and carrying an absurd amount of gratitude. With more thanks than words can hold, Harper Lane. At the bottom of the letter was a phone number and an email address. Elias read it twice while Mila bounced beside him, trying to see over his arm. What does it say? Does she want to see us? Is she all better? Can we meet her? She wants to have lunch with us, Elias said slowly. This Saturday. Can we go? Please, Daddy. I want to see if her shoulder is okay and if she's not scared anymore. Elias looked at his daughter's eager face, then back at the letter. Some part of him wanted to decline politely, to keep Harper Lane in the category of good deed performed, rather than letting her become real, complicated, human. His life was already full to bursting with single fatherhood, with managing his grief and Mila's, with the endless logistics of keeping their small family afloat. But another part of him, the part that had carried Harper's weight down a mountain, that had felt her breath against his neck and heard the desperate gratitude in her voice, that part wanted to see her again, wanted to know she was okay, wanted to close the loop on the story that had started on that October morning. Yeah, he heard himself say. Yeah, we can go. Mila's shriek of joy could probably be heard 3 houses over. Harper arrived at River's Edge Cafe 20 minutes early, cursing her anxiety and her walking boot in equal measure. She changed outfits 4 times, finally settling on jeans, a green sweater, and a scarf that hid most of her shoulder scar, and had given herself no fewer than 3 pep talks in the car. It's just lunch. Just saying thank you. Just 2 people who helped you and deserve to hear that you're okay. Except it didn't feel like just anything. It felt enormous and terrifying and important in ways she couldn't quite name. She ordered a coffee she didn't drink and chose a booth by the window where she could watch the parking lot. The cafe was decorated for Christmas, white lights strung along the walls, a small tree in the corner, the smell of cinnamon and vanilla heavy in the air. Cheerful holiday music played softly through overhead speakers. At 11:58, a truck pulled into the lot, older model, well-maintained with Turner Electric painted on the side. Harper's heart kicked into overdrive. The driver's door opened and Elias Turner emerged, and Harper got her first real look at the man who'd saved her life. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing jeans and a flannel shirt under a work jacket, dark hair going silver at the temples, a few days' worth of beard, the kind of weathered handsomeness that came from years of outdoor work. He moved around the truck to open the passenger door, and Mila tumbled out, purple jacket, dark curls bouncing, eyes bright with excitement. They walked toward the cafe entrance, and Harper stood on legs that trembled more than her injured ankle warranted. The door opened. Mila spotted her first. "Miss Harper?" And then the little girl was racing across the cafe, mindful of other customers but moving with purpose. And Harper found herself kneeling despite the protest from her ankle, found herself catching Mila's careful hug, found herself crying without meaning to. "You're okay," Mila said solemnly, pulling back to examine Harper's face. "I was worried, but Daddy said you'd be okay, and he was right." "I'm okay," Harper managed, wiping at her eyes. "I'm so okay. Thanks to you." Elias approached more slowly, and up close Harper could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried in the set of his shoulders. But his smile was warm, genuine. "Harper, it's good to see you vertical." She laughed, standing with care. "It's good to be vertical. Thank you for coming, both of you." "Are you kidding? Mila has been counting down the days since we got your letter." They settled into the booth, Mila beside Harper, Elias across from them. And for a moment nobody spoke. They just looked at each other, these three people connected by crisis, trying to figure out how to navigate the aftermath. Harper broke the silence first. "I'm sorry I cried. I didn't mean to do that immediately." "Don't apologize," Elias said. "You've earned the right to cry whenever you want. I've been doing a lot of that lately. My therapist says it's healthy processing. My brother says I'm a mess. They're both probably right." "How's your shoulder?" Mila asked, reaching out to gently touch Harper's sweater where the scar lay hidden underneath. "It's healing really well, see?" Harper carefully pulled down the neck of her sweater to show the top of the scar. "It looks scary now, but the doctors say it'll fade. And my ankle," she tapped her walking boot, "this has to stay on for another month, but then I should be good as new." "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes, but not as much as it did." "I broke my arm when I was 4, Mila announced. "I fell off the monkey bars. Mommy took me to the hospital, and I got a pink cast and everyone signed it." Harper glanced at Elias, saw something flicker across his face at the mention of his late wife. But he just nodded, let his daughter talk. "That must have been scary," Harper said. "A little, but Mommy said brave girls get ice cream after they get casts. So we got ice cream, and then it wasn't scary anymore." Mila paused, considering. "Maybe you should get ice cream too, for being brave. That's solid medical advice." A waitress appeared, took their orders, grilled cheese for Mila, burger for Elias, soup and salad for Harper. When she left, an awkward silence descended again. Harper pulled out the gift she'd brought, a wrapped package about the size of a large book. She pushed it across the table toward Mila. "I got you something to say thank you for being so brave and helpful." Mila's eyes went wide. "Really? For me? Really?" With the careful excitement of a child who'd been taught to appreciate gifts, Mila unwrapped the package. Inside was a professional-grade sketchbook with thick, textured pages and a set of drawing pencils in every shade imaginable. "Whoa," Mila breathed. "These are so fancy." "Your dad mentioned you like to draw. I thought maybe you could use these for special pictures." Mila flipped through the blank pages with reverence, then looked up at Harper with serious eyes. "I'm going to draw you something, a picture of butterflies and mountains and sunshine, to remind you that you're okay now." Harper had to swallow hard against fresh tears. "I would treasure that more than anything." Elias cleared his throat. "Harper, this is really generous. You didn't have to." "I wanted to. It's nowhere near enough, but I wanted to." "You know you don't owe us anything, right? Anyone would have done what we did." "Would they?" Harper met his eyes. "Because I've been hiking alone for years. I've passed dozens of people on trails, and I'm not sure everyone would have stopped, would have carried me, would have stayed. We weren't going to leave you there. But you could have. You could have called 911 and waited with me but kept your distance. Instead, you gave me your jacket. You carried me on your back. You told me stories to keep me awake." Mila held my hand during the worst of it. Harper's voice cracked slightly. "That wasn't just rescue. That was compassion. And it changed something in me." The waitress returned with their food, providing a natural break in the intensity. They ate for a while in more comfortable silence, Mila chattering about school and her teacher, Miss Rodriguez, and the Christmas pageant where she'd been cast as an angel. "Will you come see it?" Mila asked Harper suddenly. "The pageant is on Thursday night. You could sit with Daddy." "Mila," Elias said gently, "Harper might have plans. We can't just invite—" "I'd love to," Harper interrupted. "If you don't mind. I mean, if it's not weird." "It's not weird," Mila declared with 6-year-old certainty. "Right, Daddy?" Elias looked between his daughter and Harper, something complicated crossing his face. "No," he said finally. "It's not weird. You're welcome to come." After lunch, Mila insisted they walk down to the river overlook behind the cafe, a short path with benches facing the water. Harper navigated it slowly with her boot, Elias hovering nearby in case she stumbled. "You don't have to worry," Harper said. "I'm not going to collapse." "Old habits. Part of my job is making sure people don't get electrocuted. It makes me overly cautious about danger in general." "Occupational hazard?" "Something like that." He was quiet for a moment, watching Mila investigate a patch of dried wildflowers near the water's edge. Can I ask you something? Anything. That morning, when we found you, you said 2 men attacked you for your camera equipment. Did they ever catch them? Harper shook her head. No, the police investigated, but there wasn't much to go on. My equipment's gone. Insurance covered most of it, but she gestured vaguely. Doesn't really matter anymore. How can it not matter? Those men hurt you. They could have killed you. I know, but I've spent the last 7 weeks thinking about what happened, and the attack isn't what stays with me. What stays with me is that I spent 3 hours alone thinking I was going to die, and my biggest regret wasn't losing my cameras or not finishing a project. It was that I'd spent so much time avoiding connection, avoiding people, hiding behind my art instead of living an actual life. Elias was quiet, absorbing this. My therapist says I'm having an existential crisis, Harper continued with a slight smile. She's probably right. But it doesn't feel like a crisis. It feels like waking up. Like I've been sleepwalking through my own life and you and Mila shocked me awake. By almost letting you bleed out on a mountain? By showing me that strangers can be kind, that people show up, that I don't have to do everything alone. Harper turned to look at him directly. You and Mila were on your way to honor your wife's memory. That's sacred. That's important. And you stopped for me anyway. Of course we stopped. But that's not of course to everyone. Trust me. I've lived a lot of years convinced that self-sufficiency was the highest virtue, that needing people was weakness. She looked out at the river, gathering her thoughts. My dad died when I was 12, cancer, and I watched my mom just crumble. She loved him so much that losing him nearly destroyed her. I promised myself I'd never be that vulnerable, never love anything or anyone so much that losing them could break me. That's a lonely way to live. Yeah, Harper said softly. It really is. Mila came running back, her hands full of dried seed pods she'd collected. Look, these are from those purple flowers. I think they might be the same kind we brought for Mommy. Harper and Elias both stiffened slightly at the mention, but Mila continued obliviously. We were supposed to visit Mommy's tree that day, but we found you instead. Daddy says Mommy probably sent us to help you. Do you think that's true? Harper looked at Elias, saw the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear that his daughter's faith might sound foolish to a stranger. I think, Harper said carefully, that whether it was your mommy or the universe or just really good timing, I'm grateful it happened. And I'd like to think that someone as special as your mommy would want people to help each other. She was really good at helping people, Mila said. She always knew when someone was sad and she'd make them feel better. Daddy says I'm like her that way. I can see that. You helped me feel better when I was very sad and very scared. Mila beamed, then suddenly threw her arms around Harper's waist. I'm glad you didn't die, Miss Harper. And I'm glad we're friends now. Harper hugged her back, this fierce little girl who'd walked ahead on a mountain trail carrying a phone like it was the most important responsibility in the world. I'm glad too, Butterfly. She felt Elias's sharp intake of breath at the nickname, realized too late she'd used his term of endearment. But when she looked up apologetically, his expression wasn't angry, just surprised, and maybe something softer. That's what Daddy calls me, Mila said happily. You can call me that too if you want. Only if it's okay with your dad. Elias cleared his throat. It's okay. What? Thursday night came too quickly. Elias sat in his truck in the elementary school parking lot, gripping the steering wheel and trying to figure out what the hell he was doing. It had been one thing to meet Harper for lunch. That was gratitude, closure, simple human decency. But inviting her to Mila's Christmas pageant felt different. Felt like opening a door he'd kept locked for 2 years. He'd told himself this was just kindness. Harper was recovering from trauma, probably lonely in her studio apartment, probably needing normal human interaction. He was helping someone who'd had a rough time. That was all. Except that wasn't all. And he knew it. Harper arrived 10 minutes before the pageant started, navigating the school hallway in her walking boot with the determined grace of someone who refused to let an injury slow her down. She'd dressed up, a deep blue dress under a long coat, her dark hair pulled back, minimal makeup that somehow made the gray of her eyes more pronounced. You made it, Elias said, standing from the folding chair he'd saved. Wouldn't miss it. Harper smiled, settling carefully into the seat beside him. How's our angel doing? Nervous, excited. She made me promise to take at least 50 pictures. Only 50? That seems conservative. You haven't seen how many costume changes there are. We might be here until midnight. The lights dimmed. The pageant began with the expected chaos of elementary school productions. Enthusiastic singing, forgotten lines, one shepherd who picked his nose throughout the entire nativity scene. But when Mila's class took the stage as angels, Elias felt the familiar tightness in his chest. She looked so much like Celeste. Same dark curls, same delicate features, same radiant smile. His wife had loved Christmas, had made it magical even the year she was dying, had insisted they still do everything. The tree, the cookies, the pageant at Mila's preschool where Celeste had sat in the audience wearing a wig because the chemo had taken her hair. She's beautiful, Harper whispered beside him. She is. You're doing an amazing job with her. I'm stumbling through. There's a difference. I don't think there is. Not when it comes to parenting. Elias glanced at her. You sound pretty confident for someone who doesn't have kids. I was a kid once. I remember what mattered. Not perfection, just presence. Just knowing someone was there, watching, caring. Harper paused. My dad came to every single one of my school things, even when he was sick, even when it meant leaving work early or pushing through exhaustion. And I didn't appreciate it then, but I do now. Mila will too. On stage, Mila was singing Silent Night with absolute conviction, if not entirely accurate pitch. Elias lifted his phone to take another picture and found his vision blurring with unexpected tears. He'd thought he was past this, the sudden ambushes of grief that hit at random moments. But sitting here in a darkened auditorium, watching his daughter shine like a star, aware of the empty seat on his other side where Celeste should have been, the weight of it crashed over him fresh. Harper's hand found his arm, just a gentle touch, nothing more. Not demanding or pitying, just there. Present. Elias didn't pull away. The pageant ended with all the children on stage waving to their families. Mila spotted them immediately, her whole face lighting up when she saw Harper sitting next to her father. Miss Harper came, she announced to the girl beside her, loud enough that several parents turned to look. After, in the chaos of the lobby with everyone collecting their children, Mila launched herself at Harper with the energy of someone who'd been holding very still for an hour and couldn't contain it anymore. Did you see me? Did you see my wings? Did you see me sing? I saw everything. You were spectacular. I remembered all the words, and I didn't trip on my robe even though Emma tripped on hers and almost fell off the stage. That's because you're a professional. Several of the other parents were watching with open curiosity. This was a small school, a tight-knit community, and Elias had remained notably single since Celeste's death. He could practically hear the gossip starting. Who's the woman with Elias Turner? Are they dating? Good for him. It's been long enough. Poor man. Moving on must be hard. We should get going, he said, more abruptly than he intended. It's past bedtime. But Mila had other ideas. Can Miss Harper come see our Christmas tree? Please, Daddy. We got it last weekend and it's really big and we haven't finished decorating it yet. Mila, Miss Harper probably has... I'd love to see your tree, Harper interrupted, then caught Elias's expression. If that's okay, if you're not too tired. He should say no, should keep boundaries, maintain distance, not let this woman, kind and interesting and dangerous to his carefully maintained equilibrium, further into their lives. Okay, he heard himself say instead, just for a little while. Our son. Harper followed Elias's truck through quiet residential streets to a modest neighborhood of older homes with large yards. His house was a craftsman-style bungalow with a wide porch, painted a soft gray with white trim. Christmas lights were strung along the roofline, white, simple, the kind that stayed up year-round but only got plugged in for the holidays. Inside, the house was exactly what Harper expected, clean but lived in, decorated with a child's enthusiasm more than an adult's design sense. Drawings covered the refrigerator. Toys were neatly organized in baskets. The furniture was comfortable rather than stylish, built for real life rather than magazine photos. And there, dominating the living room, was the Christmas tree, a 7-foot Douglas fir listing slightly to one side, half-decorated with a chaotic mix of ornaments that ranged from handmade paper snowflakes to vintage glass balls to plastic cartoon characters. "We're not done yet," Mila explained, already pulling out boxes of remaining ornaments. "Daddy said we'd finish this weekend, but now you're here, so we can finish tonight." "Mila, it's late," Elias started. "Please, Daddy, just a few more ornaments?" Harper watched him struggle, watched him try to balance structure and indulgence, watched him ultimately soften, because how could he deny his daughter this simple joy? 30 minutes, he said. Then bed. No arguments. Deal. They decorated together, Mila directing like a tiny general, Elias reaching the high branches, Harper sitting on the couch, carefully placing ornaments within reach on lower branches. Christmas music played softly from a speaker in the corner. The tree lights cast everything in warm, flickering gold. "This one was Mommy's favorite," Mila said, holding up a delicate glass cardinal. "She said cardinals are special birds that bring messages from heaven." "It's beautiful," Harper said softly. "And this one I made in preschool. See? It's my handprint, but Mommy turned it into a reindeer." Mila hung it carefully on a branch at eye level. "And this one," she continued cataloging ornaments, each with its own story, its own memory of Celeste woven through. Harper listened with the attention of someone who understood that this was holy ground, that Mila was sharing something precious and fragile. Elias worked quietly, but Harper caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she couldn't quite read. Not suspicion, but maybe assessment, trying to figure out if she could be trusted with his daughter's heart. When the last ornament was hung and Mila had been tucked into bed, after changing into pajamas, brushing teeth, 3 stories, and elaborate goodnight rituals, Elias found Harper still in the living room, standing in front of the wall of photographs. "Sorry," she said, turning. "I should have left. I didn't mean to be nosy." "It's okay." He came to stand beside her, looking at the wall he saw every day, but maybe didn't really see anymore. "That's Celeste, my wife." The woman in the photographs was stunning. Dark wavy hair, warm brown eyes, a smile that seemed to light up every frame. But what struck Harper most was the love evident in every image. Celeste laughing in Elias's arms. Celeste pregnant with Mila. Celeste painting in a studio. Celeste holding their newborn daughter with an expression of such fierce tenderness it made Harper's chest ache. "She was beautiful," Harper said quietly. "She was everything." Elias's voice was rough. Artist, teacher, the kind of person who made everyone around her better just by existing. She saw potential in people, in moments. She'd have loved photographing with you, actually. She painted landscapes, but she always said photographers saw light differently. "How did she die, if you don't mind me asking?" "Car accident. Drunk driver ran a red light. She died on impact. They said she didn't suffer, but—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Mila was in daycare. I was at work. Just a normal Tuesday afternoon, and then cops at my door and everything ended. I'm so sorry. It's been 2 years. Everyone says it gets easier. They're full of shit. It just gets different. You learn to carry it. You learn to function. But it's always there." Harper didn't offer platitudes or false comfort. She just stood with him in the weight of it, understanding that sometimes presence mattered more than words. "That morning on the mountain," Elias said finally, "we were going to visit the tree where I scattered her ashes. Mila and I go once a month. It's our thing, our way of staying connected. And then you found me instead." "Yeah." He turned to look at her, and I keep thinking about that, about timing, about how if we'd been 5 minutes earlier or later, we'd have missed you. About how Celeste always believed in signs, in the universe putting people in each other's paths for a reason. Do you believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore. I believed my wife and I would grow old together. I believed in fairness and justice and good people being rewarded. Life disabused me of all that pretty efficiently. But you still stopped to help me. Of course I did. See, that's faith right there. Maybe not in the universe or God or signs, but in the basic goodness of helping, of showing up. That's not nothing, Elias. He was quiet for a long moment, studying her face. "Why are you here, Harper? Really?" "What do you mean?" "I mean you thanked us. You gave Mila a gift. You came to her pageant. Mission accomplished. You don't owe us anything else. So why are you here in my house, looking at pictures of my dead wife? Harper could have deflected, could have made an excuse and left. But she'd promised herself after the mountain that she'd stop hiding from hard truths. Because I like you, she said simply. You and Mila both. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be part of something instead of always observing from the outside. Because you make me want to be braver about connection. She paused. And maybe because I'm lonely, and you're the first people in years who've made me feel less alone. Is that honest enough? Elias looked stunned by her candor. Yeah, he said roughly. Yeah, that's honest. Is it okay that I feel that way? I don't know. I'm not. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. I haven't dated since Celeste died. Haven't even thought about it. Mila is my whole world, and keeping us both functional takes everything I have. I'm not asking for anything, Elias. I'm just telling you the truth. The truth is complicated. The truth usually is. They stood there in the Christmas tree light, two people broken in different ways, trying to figure out if broken things could fit together or if they'd just create more sharp edges. Finally, Elias spoke. Would you want to hike with us? Next month, when your ankle's healed. Not to Celeste's tree. I'm not ready for that. But somewhere else. Somewhere new. Hope bloomed in Harper's chest. I'd really like that. Okay then. Okay. Harper left shortly after, driving home through empty streets with her heart racing, replaying the evening over and over. In the span of 7 weeks, she'd gone from dying alone on a mountain to decorating a Christmas tree with a family who'd taken her in like she'd always belonged. Dr. Chen was going to have a field day with this session, but for the first time in longer than she could remember, Harper didn't care about analyzing or protecting herself or maintaining careful distance. She just cared about seeing them again, about the way Mila's eyes lit up when she walked in a room, about the complicated grief in Elias's gaze that she recognized because she carried her own version. The next weekend, true to his word, Elias texted her about a hike, then another. Before Harper quite understood how it happened, regular weekend adventures became their routine. Easy trails at first, accommodating her healing ankle, gradually working up to longer distances. Harper taught Mila photography basics, how to see light and shadow, how to frame a shot. Mila taught Harper about purple flowers and butterfly symbolism and the intricate rules of the imaginary games 6-year-olds invented. Elias mostly watched, occasionally joining in, always hovering at the edges like he wasn't quite sure where he fit in this new dynamic. They fell into patterns. Saturday morning hikes followed by lunch at whatever small-town diner they found nearby. Harper learned that Elias took his coffee black, that Mila would only eat grilled cheese if it was cut diagonally, that both of them unconsciously looked for cardinals because Celeste had loved them. And slowly, carefully, the three of them began to feel less like stranger and rescuers, and more like something Harper didn't have a name for yet, but recognized in the warm, expanding space behind her ribs. Something that felt dangerously like family. The call came on a Wednesday night in late February, 3 months after their first hike together had become many. Elias was finishing up a rewiring job in northeast Portland when his phone buzzed with a text from Mila's school. Your daughter is running a fever. Please pick up as soon as possible. He made it to the school in 15 minutes, found Mila in the nurse's office looking small and miserable, her face flushed and her eyes glassy with illness. The nurse took him aside, spoke in the hushed tones reserved for concerned medical professionals. She's at 102.6. Started complaining of a sore throat around noon. We gave her Tylenol, but it hasn't brought the fever down much. You'll want to get her to a doctor. Elias scooped his daughter into his arms, feeling the alarming heat radiating through her clothes. Mila buried her face against his neck and whimpered, a sound that activated every protective instinct he possessed. The urgent care clinic confirmed what he'd suspected. Flu, the nasty strain that had been making its way through Portland's schools like wildfire. They sent him home with instructions for fluids, rest, and medications to manage symptoms. Nothing to do but wait it out. By that evening, Mila was thoroughly miserable. The fever climbed to 103 despite alternating medications. She couldn't keep food down, barely managed sips of water, and cried weakly that everything hurt. Elias sat beside her bed feeling helpless in the way only a parent watching their child suffer could feel. He'd called off work for the rest of the week, rearranged his schedule, prepared himself for the siege of childhood illness. But by Thursday morning, when Mila woke crying at 3 a.m., asking for her mother, Elias felt his careful composure cracking. "I know, Butterfly. I know you want Mommy. I'm so sorry." She always made me feel better when I was sick. She sang songs and rubbed my back and told stories about brave princesses who defeated dragon germs. Elias's throat closed around words he didn't have. How did you explain to a 6-year-old that her mother's absence hurt you as deeply as it hurt her? That you would give anything, everything, to have Celeste here for moments exactly like this? "I can try to tell you a story," he offered weakly. "It's not the same." Mila's voice was so small, so defeated, that it broke something in him. He texted Harper at 4 a.m., not really expecting a response, just needing to tell someone who might understand. "Mila has the flu. Bad. She's asking for Celeste, and I don't know what to do." Harper's response came 30 seconds later. "I'm so sorry. Is there anything I can help with?" "Unless you can resurrect the dead, probably not." He regretted sending it immediately. Too dark, too raw. Not fair to unload on someone who'd simply asked a kind question. But Harper didn't pull back. "Can't resurrect the dead, but I can bring soup, books, and distractions. Would that help or make things worse?" Elias stared at his phone screen, exhausted and overwhelmed and suddenly desperate for backup. "It would help. If you're really offering, give me 2 hours. I'll be there." Harper showed up at 7 a.m. with bags from the grocery store and a laptop tucked under her arm. She'd pulled her hair into a messy bun, wore yoga pants and an oversized sweater, looked like she'd gotten as little sleep as Elias. "You didn't have to come," he said, but his relief at seeing her was visceral. "I know, I wanted to." She set the bags on his kitchen counter, started unpacking. "I brought chicken noodle soup, the good kind from that deli on Hawthorne, not canned. Ginger ale, saltines, popsicles for her throat. And I downloaded about 50 nature documentaries about butterflies and birds that I thought she might like." Elias felt something dangerous happening in his chest, a warmth that had nothing to do with fever, a gratitude that went deeper than the practical help she was offering. "Harper, thank you, really. How is she?" "Fever's down a little, but she's pretty miserable. Threw up twice during the night. Can't really sleep." He rubbed his face, felt the stubble he hadn't had energy to shave. "And she's asking for Celeste, which makes me feel like I'm failing at every possible level." "You're not failing. You're just one person trying to be 2 parents, and that's impossible." "Doesn't stop me from trying." Harper touched his arm gently. "Go take a shower. Get changed. I'll sit with Mila for a while." "You don't have to." "Elias, go." He wanted to argue, to maintain control, to not let anyone see how close to breaking he actually was. But the firm kindness in Harper's voice, the solid presence of her in his kitchen at 7 in the morning bearing soup and documentaries and grace, it undid him. "Okay," he whispered. 20 minutes. Take 30. Take an hour if you need it." When Elias emerged from the shower feeling marginally human, he found Harper sitting on the floor beside Mila's bed, her laptop balanced on her knees, speaking in a low, soothing voice. And this one is called a monarch butterfly. They're famous because they migrate thousands of miles every year. Imagine being something so small and delicate, but also so incredibly strong. They fly all the way from Canada to Mexico, which is like you walking from here to the moon. Well, not exactly, but you get the idea. Mila was propped against her pillows, still flushed and glassy-eyed, but watching the screen with focused interest. Why do they go so far? Because they're looking for the perfect place to survive the winter. Sometimes you have to go on a big journey to find where you're supposed to be. Like you came to Oregon? Exactly like that. I was in California, but something told me I needed to be here, and now I'm really glad I listened to that feeling. Because you met me and Daddy? Because I met you and Daddy. Elias leaned against the doorframe, watching this woman who'd stumbled into their lives as a crisis and somehow become essential. Harper had a gift with Mila that went beyond patience or kindness. She spoke to his daughter like an equal, never condescending, never dismissive of the questions or observations that adults often brushed aside. Harper glanced up, caught him watching, and smiled. "There's coffee in the kitchen. I made a full pot." "You're a saint." "Just someone who's been sick and alone and knows how much it sucks." The day passed in the strange suspended reality of illness, time moving both slowly and quickly, measured in fever checks and medication doses, and small victories like Mila keeping down 3 crackers. Harper stayed through all of it, completely unfazed by the less glamorous aspects of caring for a sick child. She read picture books and silly voices that made Mila giggle weakly. She demonstrated beginner photography techniques using Elias's phone camera and various household objects. She sang songs Harper confessed she'd learned from her own mother during childhood illnesses, old folk ballads and show tunes, and one particularly absurd ditty about a dragon who couldn't stop sneezing. "That one's silly," Mila declared, but she was smiling for the first time all day. "The silliest. My dad used to sing it to me. He'd make up extra verses that got more and more ridiculous until I forgot I felt terrible. Your daddy sounds nice. He was the best. I miss him a lot." "Like I miss my mommy?" "Yeah, butterfly, just like that." Elias found himself unnecessary in the best possible way. Harper had everything handled with a competence that should have made him feel inadequate, but instead felt like relief. Like someone had finally showed up to help carry a weight he'd been shouldering alone for so long he'd forgotten what shared burden felt like. Around 3 p.m., Mila finally fell into a deeper sleep, her breathing evening out, her fever dropping below 101 for the first time since Wednesday. Harper closed her laptop carefully and followed Elias out to the living room, stretching out her back with a wince. "How's your ankle holding up?" he asked, noticing her slight limp. "It's fine. Gets stiff if I sit too long, but nothing terrible." She settled onto his couch with the ease of someone who'd become comfortable in his space. "She's doing better. The worst should be over in another day or two." "Thanks to you." Thanks to modern medicine and her own immune system. I just provided entertainment." "You provided a hell of a lot more than entertainment, Harper." She met his eyes, and something passed between them, an acknowledgement of the intimacy of what had just transpired. She'd seen his daughter at her most vulnerable. She'd seen him exhausted and scared and barely holding together. She'd stepped into the chaos of their life without hesitation or judgment. "I meant what I texted," Elias said quietly. "I didn't know what to do. She was crying for Celeste and I felt so goddamn helpless. Like everything I've done for 2 years to try to be enough for her just wasn't." "Elias, you are enough. You're more than enough. But grief it's not rational. It's not fair. And sometimes kids just need their mom in a way that has nothing to do with how good their dad is. I know, doesn't make it easier. I don't think it's supposed to be easy. I think it's supposed to hurt like hell, and you do it anyway, because you love her more than you want to avoid the pain." He looked at this woman who'd somehow become essential to their lives in just a few months, who understood things about loss he'd never spoken aloud, who showed up at 7 a.m. with soup and butterflies and grace. "Why are you so good at this?" he asked. "At what?" "Knowing what to say, what to do, how to help without making it weird or uncomfortable." Harper was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "When my dad died, people either avoided us completely or showed up with casseroles and terrible platitudes. He's in a better place. Everything happens for a reason. God has a plan. All of it just made us feel worse. But there was this one neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who'd lost her husband years before, who just came over and sat with my mom. Didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer advice. Just sat with her in the sadness and made sure she ate and kept the house from falling apart. That's what you're doing now." "I'm trying to, because I remember what it felt like to need that and how rare it was to actually get it." Elias felt something cracking open in his chest, a fissure in the careful walls he'd built around his heart, the ones that said he could do this alone, that needing help was weakness, that letting someone in meant risking the devastating loss he'd already survived once. "I'm scared," he admitted, the words coming out before he could stop them. "Of what?" "Of this. Of you. Of whatever this is becoming." He gestured between them, encompassing months of hikes and shared meals and moments of connection that had accumulated into something undeniable. "I'm scared of needing you and then losing you. I'm scared that Mila is getting attached and what happens if you disappear. I'm scared that I'm betraying Celeste by feeling what I'm starting to feel." Harper didn't rush to reassure him, didn't offer easy comfort. She just nodded, absorbing the weight of his confession. "I'm scared too," she said finally. "I've spent years protecting myself from exactly this kind of vulnerability, from caring about people enough that losing them would destroy me. And here I am, completely attached to your 6-year-old daughter and halfway in love with—" She stopped abruptly, her eyes widening at what she'd almost said. The silence stretched between them, charged with everything unspoken. "With?" Elias prompted, his voice rough. "With this family you've built. With the way you love your daughter. With the person you make me want to be." Harper's hands were shaking slightly. "I'm not asking for anything, Elias. I'm not trying to replace Celeste or push myself into spaces I don't belong. I just wanted you to know that I'm here, that I care, that I'm willing to be scared if it means I get to keep showing up." Elias crossed the room before he consciously decided to move, sat beside her on the couch, close enough that their knees touched. "Harper." "Yeah?" "I'm not ready to call this anything yet. I'm not ready to make promises or decisions or label whatever this is, but I need you to know that having you here today, it meant everything. You mean—" his voice cracked. "You mean a lot to both of us, more than I think I'm ready to admit." "That's okay. We don't have to rush anything." "No, we don't." They sat there in the quiet of his living room, in the pale winter light filtering through the windows, in the space of almost confession and careful hope. And for the first time since Celeste died, Elias allowed himself to imagine that maybe his heart wasn't as permanently broken as he'd believed. That night, after Harper left with promises to check in tomorrow, after Mila woke briefly to eat some soup and take more medicine. After the house settled into the stillness of evening, Elias stood in his bedroom looking at the photograph on his nightstand. Celeste on their wedding day, radiant in white lace, looking at him like he'd hung every star in the sky just for her. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered to her image. "I don't know if this is okay, or if I'm moving too fast, or if I'm dishonoring what we had. But Mila loves her, and I think I'm starting to love her too. And I don't know if you'd approve or be hurt, or if you're up there rolling your eyes at how long it took me to even consider being happy again." The photograph offered no answers, just Celeste's frozen smile, forever 28, forever lost to him. "If you sent Harper to us, if that's what happened on that mountain, then I'm trusting you knew what you were doing. But I'm terrified, Celeste. I'm so goddamn terrified of loving someone again and having them ripped away." He waited, half hoping for some sign, some sense of his wife's blessing or disapproval. But there was only silence and the steady tick of the bedroom clock and his own ragged breathing. Finally, exhausted beyond measure, Elias climbed into bed and immediately fell into restless dreams where Celeste and Harper existed simultaneously, where past and present blurred together, where he stood at a crossroads not knowing which direction led to life and which to more loss. He woke at 2 a.m. to Mila's voice calling from her room, not crying, just calling. "Daddy, can you come here?" He stumbled down the hall, found her sitting up in bed looking small but more alert than she had in days. Her fever had broken completely, leaving her skin cool and slightly damp with sweat. "What's wrong, Butterfly?" "Nothing's wrong. I just wanted to ask you something." Elias sat on the edge of her bed, brushing damp curls back from her forehead. "Okay. What? Are you going to marry Miss Harper?" The question hit him like physical impact. "What? Why would you? Where did that come from?" Mila regarded him with the solemn seriousness that meant she'd been thinking about this for a while. "Because you like her. I can tell. And she likes you. And she likes me. And she came today when I was sick even though she didn't have to, and she knew how to make me feel better, and she sang me songs like Mommy used to do." "Mila? I'm not saying she's trying to be Mommy. I know nobody can be Mommy, but—" Mila paused, searching for words beyond her 6 years. "Daddy, Mommy wouldn't want us to be lonely forever, would she?" Elias felt tears burning behind his eyes. "No, Butterfly, she wouldn't. So if you want to love Miss Harper, that's okay. She could be like a bonus mom. Not a replacement, just extra love." Mila reached out to touch his face with her small hand. "You're always sad, Daddy, even when you smile. But when Miss Harper is here, you smile different, like maybe you're remembering how to be happy." Out of the mouths of babes came wisdom that broke and healed simultaneously. Elias pulled his daughter into his arms, held her close, marveled at the emotional intelligence she'd somehow developed despite, or maybe because of, their loss. "You're a very smart little girl," he managed. "I know. My teacher says I'm perspicacious. Perceptive. That too." Mila pulled back to look at him. "So you do like her? Like her like her?" Despite everything, Elias had to laugh at the elementary school terminology. "Yeah, butterfly. I like her. Good, because I really want her to come to my birthday party next month, and maybe stay for dinner sometimes, and maybe go on more hikes, and maybe—" Mila yawned hugely, her brief burst of energy fading. "Maybe be part of our family, if she wants to be." "That's a lot of maybes. Mommy always said maybe is just another word for hope." Elias tucked his daughter back under the covers, kissed her forehead, sat with her until she drifted back to sleep. Then he stood in her doorway for a long time, processing the conversation, feeling something shift fundamentally in his understanding of what was possible. Celeste had taught their daughter about hope and butterflies and new beginnings, and now Mila was teaching him the same lessons, reflected back through the lens of a child's uncomplicated wisdom. Maybe loving again wasn't betrayal. Maybe it was exactly what Celeste would have wanted. Maybe Harper had crashed into their lives not to replace what they'd lost, but to help them grow around the grief, to show them that hearts could expand rather than just heal. The next morning, Mila woke fever-free and demanding pancakes. Harper texted to check in, and Elias found himself responding with more honesty than he'd planned. "She's better. We're better. Thank you for yesterday, for everything. Can we talk soon? Just us?" Harper's response came quickly. "Whenever you're ready. I'm not going anywhere." And for the first time in 2 years, Elias believed that might actually be true, that someone might stay, that he might get to keep this fragile, precious thing that was building between them. That night, after Mila was in bed and the house was quiet, Elias pulled out his phone and stared at Harper's contact information. His finger hovered over the call button for a full minute before he finally pressed it. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, everything okay? Yeah, I needed to hear your voice. Is that weird?" "No." Her tone softened. "Not weird at all." "Mila asked me something last night, after you left." "Okay?" "She asked if I was going to marry you." The silence on the other end was absolute. Then Harper laughed, but it sounded shaky. Wow, that's a pretty direct question from a 6-year-old. "She's perceptive. She said she can tell I like you, that you make me smile differently, that Celeste wouldn't want us to be lonely forever." Elias paused, gathering courage. "She called you a bonus mom, not a replacement, just extra love." "Elias," Harper's voice was thick with emotion. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything. I'm just telling you because I think she's right, about all of it. I am lonely. I do like you, more than like you, if I'm being honest. And the truth is I'm falling for you, Harper. It terrifies me, but I can't keep pretending it's not happening." "I'm falling for you too," Harper whispered. "I've been trying not to, trying to keep appropriate distance. But it's impossible when you're you and Mila is Mila, and every time I'm with you both I feel like I'm finally home. So what do we do about it?" "I don't know. Take it slow? Keep showing up? See where this goes without forcing it into something it's not ready to be?" "I can do that, I think." "We both can." Harper paused. "Elias, thank you for telling me, for being honest, for not running away from something that scares you. Thank you for staying, even though I've given you about 1,000 reasons to keep your distance. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." They talked for another hour, about nothing and everything, about fears and hopes, about the strange path that had led them here. And when Elias finally ended the call and climbed into bed, he slept more peacefully than he had in months. In her apartment across town, Harper stared at her phone screen with tears running down her face, unable to quite believe that she'd been given this second chance at life and family and love. She'd gone up a mountain alone 3 months ago, planning to capture a sunrise. Instead, she'd found everything, The weeks that followed their late-night phone conversation carried a different energy, something both lighter and more weighted with possibility. Elias and Harper moved through their days with the careful awareness of people who'd acknowledged feelings but hadn't yet decided what to build with them. They still went on weekend hikes, but now their hands would brush and linger instead of pulling quickly apart. They still had dinners at Elias's house, but Harper stayed later, helped with bedtime routines, sat beside him on the couch in comfortable silence after Mila fell asleep. They texted throughout the day. Nothing profound, just the small observations and shared jokes that people who were becoming essential to each other exchanged. March arrived with the kind of spring weather Oregon was famous for. Rain mixed with sudden bursts of sunshine, the world turning impossibly green overnight. Mila's birthday approached, and she talked about it constantly, listing and relisting who she wanted to invite, what kind of cake she wanted, what theme would be best. Purple butterflies, she declared one morning over breakfast. Everything has to be purple butterflies. That's very specific, Elias said, hiding his smile behind his coffee mug. It's perfect. Purple is the best color, and butterflies mean new beginnings and hope. Miss Harper told me that. Miss Harper is very wise. Is she coming to my party? She has to come to my party, Daddy. It won't be right without her. I already invited her, Butterfly. She wouldn't miss it. Mila's face lit up with satisfaction. Good, because I have a special surprise planned, and she needs to be there for it. What kind of surprise? If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise. Mila gave him a look of such profound exasperation that he had to laugh. The party was scheduled for the Saturday closest to her actual birthday, March 22nd, the first day of spring. Appropriate, Elias thought, for a child whose mother had named her after butterflies and who seemed to carry sunshine wherever she went despite the grief she'd endured. The week before the party, Elias found himself uncharacteristically nervous. He'd been thinking about something for weeks now, an idea that terrified and thrilled him in equal measure. He'd talked himself into it and out of it dozens of times. But watching Mila's excitement about her birthday, watching how naturally she included Harper in all her plans, he felt certainty settling over him. It was time. On Thursday evening, after Mila was in bed, Elias drove to the one place that might help him make sense of what he was feeling. The trail to Celeste's memorial tree was familiar, even in darkness, the path illuminated by the moon and his own muscle memory. He'd been coming here alone lately, when Mila was at school or sleeping over at a friend's house, needing to process things without his daughter's watchful eyes. The lightning-struck cedar loomed against the night sky, Celeste's bronze plaque catching moonlight. Elias sat with his back against the rough bark, in the exact spot where he'd scattered her ashes 3 years ago, and spoke to the darkness. I'm going to ask Harper to marry me, he said quietly. Not right away. I know that would be too fast, too much. But I want to tell her how I feel, really tell her, without holding back, and I need to know if you're okay with that. The forest offered its usual sounds, wind through branches, the distant call of an owl, the rustle of small creatures moving through underbrush. No dramatic signs, no cosmic revelations, just the steady patience of nature continuing regardless of human heartbreak. Mila thinks you sent Harper to us, Elias continued. She says you wouldn't want us lonely forever. And maybe she's right. Maybe you did orchestrate the whole thing, the timing, the trail, the exact moment when we'd find her. It would be like you to be that subtle and that effective simultaneously. He closed his eyes, remembering his wife's face, her voice, the particular way she'd had of seeing connections and possibilities that others missed. I loved you so much, Celeste. I still love you. That's not going to change. But I'm starting to understand that love doesn't divide. It multiplies. That loving Harper doesn't mean loving you less. It just means my heart is bigger than I thought it could be after you died. The wind picked up, sending a scatter of dried leaves across the clearing. Elias watched them dance in the moonlight, thinking about change and seasons, and the way life insisted on continuing even when you were certain it couldn't. She makes Mila laugh. She shows up when we need her. She understands grief without trying to fix it. She's patient with me being a mess. And when I'm with her, I remember what it feels like to hope for the future instead of just surviving until tomorrow. He paused, his throat tight. I think she could love us both. I think maybe she already does. Silence answered him, but it felt different somehow, not empty, but full, like the pause before an exhale. And in that moment, Elias felt what might have been imagination, or might have been grace, a sense of release, of blessing, of his wife's voice carried on wind saying what she'd always said when he was uncertain. Trust yourself. Trust your heart. Choose life. He sat with the cedar tree for another hour, talking and listening and making peace with the decision that had already been made somewhere deeper than conscious thought. When he finally stood to leave, he touched the bronze plaque one last time. Thank you, he whispered, for everything, for Mila, for the years we had, for teaching me how to love in the first place. I'll take care of our daughter, I promise, and I'll try to be happy again. For both of us. The drive home felt different, lighter somehow, like he'd set down a weight he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. When he pulled into his driveway and saw the lights he'd left on in the kitchen window, he felt a surge of clarity so strong it almost brought tears. This was home. This life he'd built from the wreckage of tragedy, and he was ready to let someone else in. The next morning, Elias called Harper. Can you meet me for coffee? Just us. I know it's last minute, but... Yes, Harper said immediately. When and where? River's Edge? Where we had our first lunch. Say 30 minutes? I'll be there. Elias dropped Mila at school with a promise to pick her up early for a special birthday week treat, then drove to the cafe with his heart hammering. He hadn't been this nervous since the night he'd proposed to Celeste, hadn't felt this combination of terror and hope. In so long, he'd forgotten how it manifested physically, sweating palms, racing pulse, the sense that the next few minutes could fundamentally alter the trajectory of his entire life. Harper was already there when he arrived, sitting in the same booth they'd occupied months ago when she'd been fresh from the hospital and he'd been uncertain what to make of this woman who'd crashed into their existence. She looked up as he approached, and her smile was equal parts warmth and worry. Everything okay? You sounded intense on the phone. Everything's fine. I need to tell you something, and I didn't want to do it over text or with Mila around. Harper's expression shifted to something more guarded. Okay, should I be worried? No, at least I hope not. Elias slid into the booth across from her, took a breath, and decided on honesty over eloquence. I went to Celeste's tree last night to talk to her, to ask her permission for something. Permission for what? For this. For us. He reached across the table, took Harper's hand in his. I'm falling in love with you, Harper. Actually, that's not accurate. I've already fallen. I'm in love with you. And I know that's terrifying and complicated and maybe too fast, but it's true. You make me want to hope again. You make Mila smile in ways she hasn't smiled since her mother died. You fit into our broken family like you were always meant to be there. Harper's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't pull her hand away. Elias, let me finish, please. He tightened his grip slightly. I'm not asking for anything you're not ready to give. I'm not proposing marriage or expecting you to move in or demanding any kind of timeline. I'm just telling you what I feel because I can't keep pretending I don't. And because Mila asked me the other night when I was going to make you part of our family officially, and I realized I want that. I want you with us. Not just on weekends or special occasions, but really with us. If you want that too. The tears spilled over, tracking down Harper's cheeks. You have no idea how much I want that. Yeah? Elias, I love you. I love Mila. I love the life you've built and the way you honor Celeste's memory while still moving forward. I love how you make me feel like I belong somewhere after years of being alone. I love... Her voice broke. I love all of it, all of you, both of you. Relief crashed through him so powerfully, he actually felt lightheaded. I was terrified you'd say it was too much, that I was asking for too much too soon. It's not too much. It's everything. Harper stood up, came around to his side of the booth, and he pulled her down beside him. She leaned her head against his shoulder, and they sat like that for a long moment, both crying a little, both laughing at themselves for crying. I have something for you, Elias said finally. Well, Mila and I have something for you, for her birthday party tomorrow, but I wanted to give you context first so it doesn't blindside you. Context for what? Just trust me, and know that whatever happens tomorrow, it comes from both of us. It's not just me deciding things. Mila is completely on board. Actually, it was partially her idea. Harper pulled back to look at him suspiciously. You're being very mysterious. Good mysterious or bad mysterious? I'll let you know tomorrow. They stayed at the cafe for another hour, talking about everything and nothing, holding hands across the table like teenagers, grinning at each other like fools. When they finally left, Elias kissed her in the parking lot. A real kiss, not the careful pecks they'd exchanged before, but something deep and certain and full of promise. I'll see you tomorrow, he said against her lips. Noon. Prepare yourself for extreme birthday chaos. I can handle chaos. Can you handle 7 6-year-olds hopped up on cake and excited about a butterfly theme? That sounds terrifying. It is, but we'll survive it together. The next day dawned clear and warm, the kind of perfect spring day that seemed ordered specifically for celebrations. Elias woke early, helped Mila wrap the last of her party favors, hung purple streamers throughout the house, and tried not to obsess over the small purple-wrapped box hidden in his dresser drawer. The party guests arrived in a chaos of children and presents and excited chatter. Mila held court in her birthday dress, purple, obviously, with butterflies embroidered along the hem, accepting gifts and hugs with the grace of someone who'd learned early how precious celebrations were. Harper showed up right at noon, carrying an elaborately wrapped present and wearing a purple shirt that made Mila shriek with delight. You matched the theme! Daddy, look! Miss Harper matched! I see that, Butterfly, very coordinated. Harper caught his eye over Mila's head, and the look they shared was full of unspoken warmth. She mouthed, I love you, and his heart did something complicated in his chest. The party proceeded with the organized chaos of child birthday celebrations, games in the backyard, pizza devoured with startling speed, presents opened with varying degrees of patience and decorum. Mila's friends from school seemed to accept Harper's presence without question, asking her to take pictures and help with party games as if she'd always been part of the family. When it came time for cake, purple frosting, butterfly decorations, 7 candles for luck, everyone gathered around singing while Mila made her wish with eyes squeezed shut in absolute concentration. What did you wish for? One of her friends asked. Can't tell, then it won't come true. But Mila looked directly at Harper when she said it, and Elias knew exactly what his daughter had wished for. After cake, after the sugar rush had peaked and started to wane, after parents began arriving to collect their exhausted children, Elias caught Harper's hand. There's one more thing. Can you wait until everyone leaves? Of course. By 3 p.m., the house was quiet again, just Elias, Mila, and Harper cleaning up the wreckage of successful celebration. Mila was still in her party dress, refusing to change, running around gathering up stray ribbons and paper plates with determined efficiency. Okay, she announced finally. It's time for the special present. Special present? Harper looked confused. You already opened everything. Not this one. This one's for me and Daddy. For you. Mila grabbed Harper's hand, tugging her toward the living room. Come on! Elias followed, his heart pounding, the purple box in his pocket feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. They'd rehearsed this, he and Mila, late at night after the party planning was done, but now that the moment had arrived, he felt like he might actually pass out from nervousness. Mila positioned Harper on the couch, then scrambled up beside her with the serious expression she wore for important occasions. Miss Harper, you saved my life. Harper blinked. What? No, sweetie, your dad saved my life. No, you saved mine too. Different way. Mila's voice was solemn, wise beyond her years. After Mommy died, me and Daddy were very sad. We were okay together, but we were still very sad. And then you came and you made us remember how to be happy. You played with me and taught me about cameras and sang me songs when I was sick, and made Daddy smile real smiles again instead of pretend ones. Mila. Harper's voice was thick with tears. So we have something to ask you, both of us together. Mila looked at Elias, nodded. Go ahead, Daddy. Elias sat on Harper's other side, effectively sandwiching her between them. He pulled out the purple box, and Harper's eyes went wide. This isn't, she started. It's not a ring, Elias said quickly. Not yet. That would be too fast and we both know it. but it is a promise of what we hope this becomes, of what we want with you. He opened the box. Inside, on a delicate silver chain, were 3 charms. A butterfly, beautifully detailed in purple enamel. A tiny camera, so precise you could see the lens. And a heart, simple and smooth, engraved on the back with 3 words, "Our bonus mom." Harper made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "The butterfly is for Mommy," Mila explained, touching it gently. "Because she's always with us, and she sent you to help us. The camera is for you because you take beautiful pictures and see beauty everywhere. And the heart is for all 3 of us together. Because you're not replacing Mommy, nobody could do that, but you're adding more love, bonus love." "We wanted you to know you're part of this family," Elias said quietly. "Not someday, not eventually. Now. You're already ours, Harper, if you want to be. This necklace is just making it official. And you have to wear it forever," Mila added. "That's the rule." Harper was openly crying now, her hands shaking as she touched the necklace. I don't know what to say. This is the most beautiful thing anyone's ever given me." "Say you'll stay," Elias said. "Say you'll keep showing up for us. Say you'll be Mila's bonus mom and my person. Say we get to keep you." "Yes." Harper was nodding, tears streaming down her face. "Yes to all of it. God, yes. I love you both so much. I'd be honored to be part of your family." "Really?" Mila's face lit up like Christmas morning. "Really, Butterfly? Nothing would make me happier." Mila launched herself at Harper, hugging her with the full-body enthusiasm of a 7-year-old who'd gotten exactly what she wished for. Harper wrapped her arms around the little girl, and Elias wrapped his arms around both of them, and for a moment they just held each other. This unexpected family, this grace born from crisis, this proof that love could multiply instead of divide. When they finally pulled apart, Mila insisted on putting the necklace on Harper herself, her small fingers working the clasp with determined concentration. When it was fastened, the 3 charms lay against Harper's collarbone, catching the afternoon light. "Perfect," Mila pronounced. "Now you're officially ours." Now I'm officially yours," Harper agreed, touching the charms like she still couldn't quite believe they were real. That evening, after Mila had been tucked into bed, exhausted from birthday excitement, after they'd stood together in her doorway watching her sleep with her new stuffed butterfly clutched to her chest, Elias and Harper sat on his back porch watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. Harper leaned against his shoulder, one hand wrapped around the 3 charms at her throat. "I can't stop touching it. It's like I need to keep checking that this is real. It's real." Elias kissed the top of her head. "You're really ours, and we're really yours, and this is really happening. I never thought I'd have this. A family. People who chose me and wanted me and made space for me in their lives. We didn't make space for you, Harper. You made the space bigger. You showed us our hearts could hold more than we thought." She turned to look at him, her gray-blue eyes luminous in the porch light. "When will you ask me to marry you? Really ask?" "I don't know. 6 months? A year? When it feels right for all of us." "Why, are you impatient?" "Yes," she admitted with a laugh. "I already know my answer. I've known it for weeks. But I also know we need to do this right. For Mila. For Celeste's memory. For us. We'll do it right," Elias promised. "We'll do everything right, or as right as imperfect humans possibly can. That's all I need. Just you trying. Just us trying together." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, hands intertwined, watching fireflies begin their nightly dance across the yard. Somewhere in the house, Mila's nightlight glowed its soft purple light. Somewhere in the universe, maybe Celeste was smiling at what she'd set in motion. And here, on this porch, 2 people who'd both known devastating loss were choosing hope again. "Harper," Elias said quietly. "Yeah?" "Thank you for not dying on that mountain." She laughed, the sound catching on tears. "Thank you for not letting me die on that mountain. Always. I'll always show up for you. Both of us will." "I know. That's what makes this so terrifying and so perfect simultaneously." "Welcome to the family, bonus mom." Harper touched her necklace again, smiled through tears, and kissed him with the certainty of someone who'd finally come home. Best bonus position I've ever been offered. 300 miles away in Seattle, Harper's brother Marcus would later tell her, he woke from a dream of his sister smiling with a family gathered around her and felt certain something fundamental had shifted in the universe. In California, Harper's mother would receive a tearful phone call the next morning and cry from relief that her daughter had finally stopped running from connection. And in a cemetery across town where Celeste Turner rested beneath a headstone marked with butterflies, the groundskeeper would find purple wildflowers growing where none had been planted, their blooms impossibly bright in the spring sunshine. Signs or coincidence? Grace or chance? It didn't really matter. What mattered was that three people had found each other at exactly the right moment, when one needed rescue, when two needed purpose, when all three needed to remember that broken things could be beautiful, and that love, given space and time and courage, would always find a way to bloom again. The months between Mila's birthday and summer passed with the accelerated pace of happiness, time moving differently when measured in moments of joy rather than survival. Harper's belongings migrated gradually into Elias's house. A toothbrush in the bathroom, clothes in the closet, her photography equipment finding space in the garage beside his electrical tools. They didn't discuss it formally, didn't make announcements or decisions. It just happened organically, the way natural things do when they're right. By June, Harper was spending most nights there, waking to Mila climbing into bed between them on weekend mornings, helping pack school lunches, attending parent-teacher conferences as naturally as if she'd always been part of the equation. The neighborhood accepted her presence without question, and Mila's school friends started calling her Miss Harper, who's basically Mila's mom, in that matter-of-fact way children had of stating truth without complication. But there was one place Harper hadn't been yet. One journey Elias and Mila still made alone once a month, on the third Saturday, to the lightning-struck cedar where Celeste's ashes had been scattered. Until August. It was Mila who brought it up first, sitting at the breakfast table on a Wednesday morning, swinging her legs and eating cereal with the deliberate slowness of someone working up courage to say something difficult. "Daddy, this Saturday when we go visit Mommy's tree, can Harper come with us?" Elias paused mid-sip of coffee, caught completely off guard. Harper, pouring orange juice, went very still. "You want Harper to come to the memorial?" Elias asked carefully. "Yeah, I think it's time. We've been a family for months now, and Mommy should get to meet her properly. I mean, I know Mommy already knows about her because Mommy's in heaven and can see everything, but we should still bring Harper, so she knows she's really part of all of us, including the mommy parts." The logic was so pure, so uncomplicated by adult anxiety, that Elias felt tears prick his eyes. He looked at Harper, saw the emotions playing across her face, hope and fear and uncertainty and longing all tangled together. "What do you think?" he asked her. "No pressure. If you're not ready—" "I'm ready," Harper said quietly. "If you're ready. It's your sacred space, Elias, yours and Mila's. I don't want to intrude." "You're not intruding if we're inviting you." Mila said this with absolute certainty. "Right, Daddy?" "Right, Butterfly." Elias reached across the table, took Harper's hand. "We'd like you to come. Both of us. It feels like the right time." So on Saturday morning, the three of them drove to Cascade Meadows Trail together. It was almost a year since the morning they'd found Harper bleeding and broken, and the symmetry of returning to this place as a family felt intentional, cosmic somehow. They hiked in companionable quiet, Mila occasionally running ahead to investigate interesting rocks or flowers, then circling back to them like a small satellite maintaining orbit. The trail was just as Elias remembered: the Douglas firs, the scent of earth and pine, the gradual climb that made his thighs burn with exertion. When they reached the spot where they'd found Harper, all three of them stopped without discussing it. The forest looked peaceful, innocent, showing no signs of the crisis that had unfolded here. But Harper stood very still, one hand unconsciously touching her shoulder where the scar lay hidden beneath her shirt. "You okay?" Elias asked quietly. "Yeah. Just strange being back here, remembering." She looked around the area, seeing it now with healthy eyes instead of through the haze of shock and blood loss. "I was so sure I was going to die right there. And then you appeared like some kind of miracle. You were the miracle, Mila said seriously. That's what Daddy told me later, that sometimes miracles look like scary things first before you understand they're actually blessings. When did I get so wise? Elias murmured. You've always been wise, Daddy. You just forget sometimes. They continued up the trail, and Elias felt his chest tightening the way it always did when they approached the cedar. But this time, the feeling was different. Still grief, still reverence, but mixed with something new. Something like peace. The lightning-struck cedar came into view, its twisted trunk and reaching branches as familiar as his own heartbeat. The bronze plaque gleamed in dappled sunlight, Celeste's name and dates marking time that felt simultaneously like yesterday and eternity ago. Mila ran ahead as she always did, arranging the purple wildflowers they'd brought in a small circle at the base of the tree. Harper hung back, uncertain, clearly aware she was stepping into holy ground. Elias took her hand, drew her forward. It's okay. Come meet her. They approached together, and Elias placed his free hand on the tree trunk, feeling the rough bark beneath his palm, the solid reality of it anchoring him to this moment. Celeste, this is Harper Lane, he said quietly. Harper, this is Celeste. My wife, Mila's mother, the love of my life, and the reason we're standing here today. Harper's eyes filled with tears, but she stepped closer, placed her own hand on the tree beside his. Hi, Celeste. Thank you for loving them so well, for teaching Mila to be brave and kind, for giving Elias the capacity to love even after losing you, for... Her voice broke. For somehow making sure they found me when I needed saving. I promise I'll honor your place. I promise I'll love them with everything I have. I promise I'll help Mila remember you and know how special you were. Mila came to stand between them, one small hand on each of their arms. Mommy, this is my bonus mom. She's not replacing you because nobody could ever do that. But she loves us, and we love her, and she makes good pancakes, almost as good as yours. And she sings me songs when I'm sad, and she's going to marry Daddy someday. I think you'd really like her. The three of them stood like that for a long moment, a family suspended between past and present, between grief and hope, between what was lost and what had been found. And in the silence of the forest, with the August sun filtering through the branches and the sound of birdsong filling the air, Elias felt something shift. Not letting go of Celeste, never that, but making room beside his love for her to hold his love for Harper as well. Expanding rather than replacing, adding rather than substituting. I think we should do it here, Elias said suddenly. Harper looked at him, confused. Do what here? Get married. Not today. I don't have a ring yet, and you deserve a proper proposal. But when we do get married, I want it to be here, in this meadow, with Celeste as witness. So she knows she's still part of us. Still honored, still loved. Are you sure? Harper's voice was barely a whisper. That's such a personal space. Your space with her. It was my space with her. Now it's our space, all of us. He looked down at Mila. What do you think, Butterfly? Should we get married here? Mila's face transformed with joy. Yes, that's perfect. Then Mommy can be there even though she's in heaven, and we can have purple flowers everywhere and butterflies, and it'll be like two families becoming one family. Harper was crying openly now, but she was also smiling. If you're really sure, if this feels right to you both. It feels exactly right, Elias said. It feels like the only place it could possibly be. They spent another hour at the memorial, talking to Celeste the way they always did. Mila telling her about school and friends and her latest drawings, Elias sharing updates about work and the house and small moments Celeste would have loved. And now Harper joined in, tentatively at first but with growing confidence, sharing her own observations and gratitude and promises. When they finally started back down the trail, Elias noticed that Harper's shoulders had lost some of their tension, that she moved with the ease of someone who'd been accepted rather than tolerated. And Mila chattered happily about wedding plans, already designing the ceremony in her imaginative 7-year-old mind. Purple everywhere, obviously. And we need to release butterflies. Can you do that at weddings? And Harper should wear a dress with butterflies on it, and you should wear a purple tie, Daddy, and I should be the flower girl and scatter purple petals, And maybe we can have butterfly cake. One thing at a time, Butterfly, Elias laughed. We haven't even officially gotten engaged yet. Well, you should fix that. Harper's been waiting very patiently. Has she now? Yes, Mila said matter-of-factly. She checks her left hand like 5 times a day to see if a ring magically appeared. I've seen her do it. Harper flushed bright red. I do not... Okay, maybe occasionally, but I'm not pressuring. You're not pressuring, Elias assured her, amused and touched by the revelation. You're just making me realize I need to stop being scared and make this official. Scared of what? Harper asked. Scared that this is too good to be real, that I'll wake up and you'll be gone, that I'll mess this up somehow and lose you like I lost her. Harper stopped walking, took both his hands in hers while Mila diplomatically wandered a few feet ahead to give them privacy. Elias, listen to me. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not Celeste. I'll never be Celeste, and I'm not trying to be, but I'm here. I'm real. I'm choosing you and Mila every single day. And yes, life is uncertain and scary, and bad things happen to good people. But that's exactly why we have to grab joy when we find it. We have to say yes to love even when it terrifies us. I know, my brain knows that. My heart is just taking longer to catch up. So let me ask you something. Harper's gray-blue eyes were serious, intense. When you think about our future, about years from now, about growing old, about all the moments big and small that make up a life, can you picture it without me in it? No, Elias admitted immediately. God, no. The thought of losing you makes me physically ill. Then stop letting fear make decisions. Start letting love make them instead. She squeezed his hands. I'm not asking for perfect or fearless. I'm just asking for honest and committed. For you to believe that we're worth the risk. You're worth every risk, he said fiercely. Both of you. You're worth everything. Then prove it. She was smiling now, teasing but also serious. Stop thinking about proposing and actually do it. Whenever you're ready. I'll be here. 2 weeks later, on a Tuesday evening in late August, Elias found himself standing in a jewelry store in downtown Portland, staring at a display of engagement rings with a sense of surreal destiny. He'd brought Mila with him because this decision belonged to both of them. She stood pressed against the glass case, examining rings with the solemn concentration of someone tasked with a mission of utmost importance. That one's too plain, she pronounced, pointing at a simple solitaire. Harper deserves sparkle. And that one's too big. She works with her hands. She needs something that won't catch on stuff. Ooh, what about that one? The ring she indicated was perfect. A delicate silver band with a center diamond flanked by 2 smaller stones. The whole thing designed to look like a butterfly in flight. It was elegant and unique and somehow completely Harper. That's the one, Elias said with certainty. Are you sure? The sales associate, a kind woman in her 50s, smiled at them. You should look at a few more before deciding. I'm sure. We're both sure. He looked at Mila. Right, Butterfly? Right. That's Harper's ring, I can tell. They left the store with the ring in a velvet box and a plan starting to form in Elias's mind. He'd initially thought about proposing at the cedar tree, making it a private moment between the 3 of them. But the more he considered it, the more he realized Harper deserved something bigger, something that honored not just her place in their family, but the journey that had brought her here. We should do it at the place where we found her, Mila suggested in the car ride home. Where everything started. That would be romantic. That's actually a brilliant idea. When did you get so smart about romance? I watch a lot of movies while you and Harper think I'm asleep, Mila admitted cheerfully. Plus, Miss Rodriguez reads us fairy tales and they always have good proposal scenes. Noted, we're monitoring your movie watching more carefully. Too late. I already know all the good stuff. So on the first Saturday of September, exactly 1 year after they'd found Harper bleeding on the mountainside, Elias orchestrated his proposal. He told Harper they were going on their usual morning hike. Nothing special, just the 3 of them and the trail and the late summer sunshine. Harper suspected nothing, arriving at his house in hiking clothes and boots, her camera bag slung over her shoulder because she never went anywhere without it anymore. Ready for an adventure? She asked Mila, who was practically vibrating with barely contained excitement. So ready. This is going to be the best hike ever. Why are you being weird? I'm not weird. You're weird. Mila definitely knows something I don't, Harper said to Elias. Should I be concerned? Mildly concerned, but in a good way. He kissed her quickly, tasting her smile. Trust me? Always. They drove to Cascade Meadows, parked in the same spot they'd parked a year ago, started up the same trail under the same canopy of Douglas firs. But this time, instead of hiking all the way to the cedar, Elias guided them off the main path about halfway up, onto the smaller trail that led to the place where everything had changed. Where are we going? Harper asked, beginning to look genuinely confused. This isn't the way to your memorial spot. I know. We're going somewhere else today. But we always go to the cedar on the third Saturday. Harper stopped abruptly as they broke through the trees into the small clearing where they'd found her a year ago. The clearing had been transformed. Someone, and Harper would learn later it was Elias's brother and Harper's brother Marcus, working together in secret for the past week, had hung lights in the branches overhead, strung garlands of purple flowers around the space, set up a small table with champagne and glasses. At the center of the clearing stood a handmade arbor woven with flowering vines and white fabric, and at the base of the moss-covered log where Harper had lain bleeding, purple wildflowers grew in deliberate abundance. Harper's hands flew to her mouth. What is this? What did you do? This is where you almost died, Elias said, taking her hands in his. This is where Mila heard you crying and we found you, and everything changed. This is where our story started, and I wanted this to be where the next chapter officially begins. Elias. Her voice broke on his name. Mila came to stand beside them, and she pulled something from her backpack, the small purple box that had held Harper's necklace months ago, now containing something different. Miss Harper, Mila said with the solemn formality of someone who'd practiced this speech many times. A year ago you were dying here, and we saved you. But really, you saved us too. You saved Daddy from being sad forever. You saved me from forgetting that new people can love you without taking away the old people you loved. You taught us that families can grow instead of just shrink. Elias took the box from his daughter, opened it to reveal the butterfly ring. Then he lowered himself to one knee on the forest floor, in the exact spot where he'd knelt a year ago to apply pressure to Harper's bleeding shoulder. Harper Lane, he said, and his voice was steady despite the tears streaming down his face. You didn't fill the hole that Celeste left. You did something better. You helped us grow around it. You showed us that love doesn't divide, it multiplies. That grief and joy can coexist. That broken things can become beautiful when they're given grace and time and the courage to try again. Harper was openly sobbing, but she was also smiling, her whole face radiant. Mila and I, we're a package deal. You get both of us, the good days and the hard ones, the grief that still surfaces, and the joy that's learning to be louder. You get early mornings and scraped knees and elementary school events and electrical emergencies. You get a 7-year-old who will wake you up at dawn on weekends, and a man who's still learning how to love without fear. He paused, his thumb stroking over the ring. But what we're offering, it's everything we have. It's breakfast in bed, an adventure on weekends, and building a life together that honors the past while embracing the future. It's purple flowers and butterfly symbolism, and the certainty that you will always, always be chosen. Harper Lane, Mila chimed in, taking Harper's left hand. Will you marry us? Harper dropped to her knees between them, pulling them both into her arms, laughing and crying simultaneously. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to you both. Yes to this family. Yes to everything. Elias slipped the ring onto her finger with shaking hands, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. Because this whole thing had been written in the stars, or fate, or grace, from the moment Mila had heard crying in the woods a year ago. They held each other in that clearing, this family that had formed from crisis and healed through choice, while overhead the lights twinkled and birds sang, and somewhere in the universe Celeste Turner smiled at the beautiful, messy, perfect thing her death had inadvertently created. When? Harper asked eventually, pulling back to look at them both. When should we do this? The wedding? Next month, Mila announced. October. At Mommy's tree. We already planned it. You already... Without asking me? We knew you'd say yes, Elias said, not quite apologetically. Mila's been designing the ceremony for months. We have an officiant lined up. Harper's brother Marcus agreed to do it after getting certified online. My brother's handling logistics. Your mom is flying in from California. The guest list is small, just family and close friends. And the whole thing is happening at the cedar clearing because that's where all our worlds meet. You're very presumptuous, Harper said, but she was grinning. Did we presume wrong? No, you presumed exactly right. I'd marry you tomorrow if we could. Let's not wait that long, but let's not rush it either. Let's do this intentionally. Let's make it meaningful. Elias kissed her, and it tasted like salt and joy and promise. October 15th, the anniversary of the day we found you, but this time, instead of saving a life, we'll be starting one, together. That's perfect, Harper whispered. That's so perfect, I can't even stand it. They spent another hour in the clearing, drinking champagne, sparkling cider for Mila, and talking about the future with the giddy excitement of people who'd been given an unexpected gift. Then they hiked up to the cedar clearing so Harper could tell Celeste the news properly, all three of them standing before the bronze plaque with linked hands. We're getting married here, Harper said to the tree, to the memory, to the woman who'd made all this possible. Next month. And I'm terrified and grateful and so incredibly honored that you're letting me love them. I promise I'll never try to erase you. I promise they'll always know how special you were. I promise I'll help them grieve you and celebrate you and keep your memory alive. She knows, Mila said with absolute certainty. I can feel it. She's happy for us. How can you tell? Harper asked. Because look. Mila pointed upward, and they all tilted their heads back to see a monarch butterfly floating through the clearing, its orange and black wings catching sunlight as it spiraled gracefully above them before landing on the bronze plaque. They watched it rest there for a long moment, impossibly perfect, impossibly timed, before it lifted off again and disappeared into the trees. See, Mila said, Mommy sent a butterfly. That means blessings and new beginnings. Or it's just a butterfly, Elias said, but his voice was full of wonder. Can it be both? Harper asked, and he had to admit she was right. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of wedding planning condensed into an impossibly tight timeline. Harper's mother arrived from California and immediately bonded with Mila over their shared love of butterflies and purple things. Marcus flew in from Seattle and spent hours with Elias's brother setting up the cedar clearing, hanging lights, building a pathway of smooth stones for Harper to walk down. The guest list stayed deliberately small, 15 people total, all of whom had played meaningful roles in bringing this family together. Harper's physical therapist, who'd helped her recover from the mountain. Dr. Chen, her trauma therapist, who'd guided her through processing what happened. A few of Elias's electrical crew who'd covered his shifts during the hardest days. Mila's teacher, Miss Rodriguez, who'd watched this family evolve all school year. And Harper's best friend from college who'd flown in from New York crying with joy that Harper had finally let someone in. The morning of October 15th dawned cool and clear, the kind of perfect autumn day that seemed too beautiful to be real. Elias woke early, found Mila already awake and dressed in her flower girl dress, purple silk with embroidered butterflies, her dark curls crowned with a wreath of wildflowers. Is it time? She asked breathlessly. Is it finally time? Almost, butterfly. Just a few more hours. I'm so excited I might actually explode. Is that medically possible? We'll try to prevent it. Harper was getting ready at her apartment with her mother and best friend, following the tradition of not seeing the groom before the ceremony. But she texted Elias a photo of her necklace, the one with 3 charms he and Mila had given her for Mila's birthday, laid out on her dress. Wearing this today. All 3 of you with me. He texted back, perfect. See you at the altar. I love you. I love you too, both of you. By noon, everyone had gathered in the meadow near the lightning-struck cedar. White chairs arranged in a small semicircle. The handmade arbor decorated with purple flowers and white fabric and thousands of tiny lights that would glow when evening came. A sound system playing soft instrumental music. And at the center of it all, Celeste's bronze plaque surrounded by purple wildflowers, witnessing everything. Elias stood under the arbor with Marcus, who looked official and slightly nervous in his role as officiant. Mila stood beside her father, gripping her basket of purple petals, looking more grown-up than 7 should allow. You okay, Daddy? She whispered. I'm perfect, butterfly. Today is perfect. The music changed, everyone stood, and Harper emerged from the tree line on her mother's arm, and Elias forgot how to breathe. She wore a simple dress, ivory with delicate lace sleeves, flowing and natural and completely her. Her dark hair was down, woven with small white flowers. The three-charm necklace gleamed at her throat, and her face, her beautiful face, was lit with such pure joy that Elias felt his heart crack open with the enormity of what he felt for her. As Harper walked toward him, Mila scattered purple petals along the path, creating a river of color for her bonus mom to walk on. When Harper reached the arbor, her mother kissed her cheek and placed Harper's hand in Elias's, completing the circle. "Hi," Harper whispered, tears already streaming. "Hi," Elias whispered back. "You're stunning. You're not so bad yourself." Marcus cleared his throat, and the ceremony began. He spoke about love and loss and second chances, about families that are built rather than born, about the grace of showing up when someone needs saving and the courage of letting yourself be saved. Then it was time for vows. Elias went first, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. "Harper, a year ago you stumbled into our lives bleeding and broken, and I thought we were just doing the right thing by helping you. I had no idea you were going to help us even more. You taught Mila that love multiplies instead of divides. You taught me that my heart was bigger than I thought. You showed us both that choosing joy doesn't mean forgetting sorrow. It just means making room for both." He paused, looked down at Mila, then back at Harper. "I can't promise you easy. Our life will always have shadows mixed with sunshine. But I can promise you chosen. Every day, for the rest of our lives, I choose you. I choose us. I choose this messy, beautiful, miraculous family we're building together." Harper was openly crying, but she smiled through it. "Elias, when I was lying on that mountain thinking I was going to die, my biggest regret was that I'd spent so much time alone, that I'd protected myself from connection so thoroughly I'd forgotten how to receive love. And then you appeared, you and Mila, and you didn't just save my life. You saved me from the life I'd been living." She turned slightly to include Mila. "You've both taught me that family isn't just about blood or biology. It's about showing up, about choosing each other every day, about making space for grief and joy to coexist. And I promise you both, I will show up. I will choose you. I will love you through the easy days and the hard ones. I will honor Celeste's place and memory while adding my own love to the mix. Because that's what bonus means. Additional, not replacement. Extra, not instead of." Mila, unable to contain herself any longer, threw her arms around Harper's waist. "I love you so much, bonus mom." "I love you too, butterfly. So much." Marcus had to wipe his own eyes before continuing. "And now, Mila has something she'd like to say." Mila straightened, suddenly serious, and pulled a folded piece of paper from the pocket of her dress. "I wrote vows too. Because this isn't just Daddy marrying Harper, it's all three of us becoming an official family." She unfolded the paper, her small voice clear and strong. "Mommy, I know you're watching from heaven. Thank you for sending Harper to us. She's really nice and she loves me almost as much as you did, and she makes Daddy happy again. Harper, thank you for being my bonus mom. Thank you for teaching me about cameras and butterflies and singing to me when I'm sick. Thank you for not being scared of our sadness. And Daddy, thank you for being brave enough to love again. I think that's the bravest thing anyone can do." There wasn't a dry eye in the clearing. Marcus recovered enough to finish the ceremony. "By the power vested in me by the internet and the state of Oregon, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Elias, you may kiss your bride." Elias pulled Harper into his arms and kissed her while everyone cheered, and Mila jumped up and down shrieking with joy, and somewhere overhead a dozen monarch butterflies appeared, released earlier by Harper's best friend, but the timing was too perfect to be anything but orchestrated by forces beyond human understanding. The butterflies swirled around them in a cloud of orange and black wings, and Mila laughed with pure delight. "Mommy sent a whole bunch this time. That means super blessings." The reception was held right there in the meadow, fairy lights glowing as evening approached, a simple meal of Harper's favorite foods, and a three-tiered cake decorated with purple flowers and butterflies. Speeches were made, Marcus welcoming Elias into their small family with humor and warmth, Elias's brother sharing stories about watching his brother heal, Harper's mother crying through tales of her daughter finally opening her heart. But the best moment came when Mila insisted on giving her own speech, climbing onto a chair so everyone could see her. "This is the best day ever," she announced, "because 1 year ago we found Harper and saved her, and now she's saving us back by being part of our family forever. And I think that's how love works. It goes back and forth, and everybody saves everybody else. Also, the cake is really good, and everyone should have some." As the sun set and the lights twinkled and the guests mingled and laughed, Elias found himself standing beside the bronze plaque with Harper's hand in his and Mila between them. "What do you think?" he asked quietly. "Is she proud of us?" "I think she's so proud she could burst," Harper said. "I think she's probably telling everyone in heaven about the beautiful family she helped create." "I miss her," Mila said simply. "I'm happy today, but I still miss her." "That's okay," Harper assured her. "Missing her and being happy aren't opposites. They can exist at the same time." "I know, you taught me that." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, three people at the intersection of past and present and future, holding space for all of it simultaneously. Then Mila tugged their hands. "Come on, we're supposed to be celebrating, and I want to dance with both my parents." Both my parents. The phrase settled into Elias's chest with warmth and rightness. He looked at Harper, saw the same emotion reflected in her eyes. "You heard her," Harper said, smiling. "Our daughter wants to dance." Our daughter. They spent the rest of the evening celebrating, dancing, eating cake, talking with friends and family, watching Mila run around catching fireflies with the other children who'd come. And as the night deepened and the party wound down and guests began to drift away, Elias pulled his new wife aside. "Thank you," he said simply. "For what?" "For not dying on that mountain. For showing up for us. For choosing this complicated, messy, beautiful life. For loving me and Mila with the kind of love we forgot existed." "Thank you for letting me," Harper replied. "Thank you for saving me and then giving me something worth being saved for." They kissed under the fairy lights, while Mila pretended to be grossed out, but was actually grinning. And in that moment, surrounded by love and light and the presence of everyone who mattered most, living and dead, present and remembered, Elias felt something click into place. Wholeness. Not the kind that came from never being broken, but the kind that came from gathering all the pieces. The grief and the joy, the past and the present, the love that was lost and the love that was found, and weaving them together into something stronger than any single strand alone. 6 months later, on a morning in early spring, Harper would emerge from the bathroom holding a positive pregnancy test and crying. Elias would hold her while Mila jumped around them shrieking about being a big sister, and they would make the drive up to the cedar clearing to tell Celeste the news, adding this new joy to the tapestry of their story. But that was future. Tonight was present. Tonight was the three of them driving home together, Mila asleep in the back seat clutching her basket of purple petals, Harper's head on Elias's shoulder, wedding rings glinting in the dashboard light. "We did it," Harper murmured. "We actually did it." "We did, and we're going to keep doing it every day for the rest of our lives." "Good, because I have no interest in doing anything else." When they got home, they carried Mila upstairs together and tucked her into bed without waking her. Then they stood in her doorway, as they so often did, watching their daughter sleep, marveling at the resilience of children and the grace of second chances. The house was quiet around them. Their house now, all three of them, officially and completely. And on the wall of photographs, Celeste's images hung beside newer ones, Harper's photos of butterflies and mountains, candid shots of their growing family, evidence of love that multiplied instead of divided. That night, Elias dreamed of Celeste for the first time in months. In the dream, she stood in the meadow by the cedar tree, young and healthy and radiant. She smiled at him with that particular expression she'd had when she was pleased with something he'd done. "You chose well," she said. "I'm proud of you, both of you. Take care of our butterfly." "Always," he promised. "We'll always take care of her." "I know you will. That's why I sent Harper to you. I knew you'd need someone who understood that broken things can still be beautiful, who knew that love doesn't replace, it expands." Celeste paused, and in the logic of dreams she was suddenly beside him, her hand on his cheek. Be happy, Elias. That's not betrayal. That's honoring what we had by proving it taught you how to love again. I miss you. I know, but I'm not really gone. I'm in Mila's laugh and your memories and the lessons we learned together. I'm in every butterfly that lands on your window and every time you choose joy, despite pain. I'm woven into the fabric of who you are. Death can't erase that. He woke with tears on his face and Harper's arm around him and morning light filtering through the curtains. For a moment he lay there processing the dream, feeling its truth settle into his bones. You okay? Harper murmured sleepily. Yeah, I'm perfect. He pulled her closer, kissed her temple. I had a dream about Celeste. She gave us her blessing, told me to be happy. She's right. We should listen to her. We should. We will. They lay together in the quiet morning, newly married, newly expanded, newly committed to choosing joy without forgetting sorrow. And in the room down the hall, Mila stirred awake, climbed out of bed, and padded into their room as she did most mornings. Can I come in? She whispered. Always, they said in unison, and she climbed into the space between them, completing the picture. This was family. This was grace. This was the reward for showing up when someone needed saving, and the gift of letting yourself be saved in return. This was a single dad and his daughter who'd found a dying stranger and chose compassion. This was a woman alone who'd been rescued and then reciprocated by rescuing them back. This was grief and hope braided together. This was love multiplying instead of dividing. This was three broken things that became beautiful when they were given grace and time and the courage to try again. And in a meadow 3 miles into the Oregon foothills, beside a lightning-struck cedar tree, purple wildflowers continued to bloom where none had been planted. Their impossible brightness, a reminder that sometimes miracles wear hiking boots and carry first aid kits and show up exactly when they're needed most. The end.